missing.
Did he just give away the next release from the high altitude
No.
series?
That's what Helldiver is a loon.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the ducks.
We got him.
Oh God! I literally just dumped a glass of whiskey on my lap.
Oh, Russ, I'm sorry. Welcome once again to Chill Filter, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to, but you probably should. Hey, you probably are. Hey, that's why we like you. Before we get into anything, let's talk about some business this week. Hey, we have a Patreon, and it's called patreon.com/chillfiltered. If you're interested in joining in on our drink-alongs, where we drink along with you, find out how that goes on patreon.com/chillfiltered, then sign up at the $10 tier or more. That's the business this week. Let's get right into it, because we got one of our favorite guests, if not, I can't say our favorite, even though he is our favorite, because then I'll hurt the other people's feelings. But we got Nick Taylor from Found North, founder. What's your other title now? You got like a cool title.
No, I don't know if I have a cool title anymore. I gave Sammy the head blender title, and I'm the chief of whiskey making or something like that. But basically, we work at it together, and I just go with founder, co-founder, whatever.
I thought it was Whiskey Wizard, actually.
Yeah,
or
Wizard.
Chief Deathblade. If you get to pick your own name.
I know, right? Oh man.
So we're celebrating. We're today was the day where the lottery results were, when we're recording, of course, the lottery results were given. And my wife and I both won one.
Let's go.
So that's pretty cool. And we haven't even mentioned what we're drinking and celebrating today. It's a Found North Helldiver 2025. It's a 17-year. We'll get into the details a little more. Nick's got the cooler bottle.
I know, I'm sorry.
But we will soon, because Brian also won on the lottery today too.
I did.
So,
I was running the numbers, and I was dreaming about like how likely it was, and with a bottle out run of 6,200 or so, I felt like odds were pretty good. It seemed like and in the chats that I was seeing online and everything, sounded like a lot of people won.
Yeah, actually, the win rate was not that high. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It must be.
It's pretty funny.
Really?
No, win rate was it was probably a little higher than the most recent Peregrine, but it was on par or maybe a little lower than batch 11. I don't look at the numbers that closely, but I know generally where they are. We got some lucky ducks apparently.
That's
or lucky loons.
Hey, there you go. I like it.
Did he just give away the next release from the high altitude series?
That's what Helldiver is a loon.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the ducks.
We got him.
Oh God! I literally just dumped a glass of whiskey on my lap.
Oh, Russ, I'm sorry. Do you need to clean it up?
Celebration.
Oh,
it's immediately fortunately, I'm right next to my laundry room, which is hilarious.
Perfect.
Hey, wait, laundry rum? Laundry.
Oh God! Yes, my laundry rum.
What a great start to this episode already.
Have we ever talked about that? I went to.
Oh yes. Go to your room.
Go to your room. Which I can say now because I have a daughter, although she's 10 months old, so I don't get to send her anywhere.
So now that we've gotten into that realm, we love we'll start personal. We'll get whiskey. You know how it goes. But how's Aurora doing?
Just absolutely amazing. She's 10 months, which this is my first kid, and I feel like especially as the dad who doesn't get to do the breastfeeding,
me too.
Baby doesn't care about dad for a while. It took a really long time for her to just be really enthralled with dad, and that's just starting, and it is the best thing that's ever happened ever.
It's
also best. 10 months. People keep being like, oh yeah, they just keep getting cuter, but I don't know how that's possible.
Dude,
it's
they're just so cute at 10 months. It's just it's just a joke.
The weird thing is, not only is that possible and totally happens, but I also think back to when I'm sure I thought she was cute at
Mhm.
like 3 months, but now I look back at photos of like 2 months or whatever, and I'm like, whoa, like who is
Yeah,
this
there's a
alien
weird thing
baby?
that's going on in your head. Yes, that's for damn sure.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, it's fun. And then you get to like for me, one of my favorite, my oldest is now 4 as of last week.
Nice.
And you get to do like fun things like daddy-daughter dates and stuff like that, and like
Oh.
really deepen that relationship and stuff. And like I
Excited.
told Beck this week, I'm like, hey, this Saturday we're gonna do another daddy-daughter date, and she's like, yeah. So, like developing that amazing relationship is
I'm jealous.
on top of even the cuteness and the appreciation for their father. It just adds on. It's amazing.
My wife had a thing in DC, and so we decided to make it a little trip, and
Nice.
the 3 of us went, and she had to work. She had to like work all day Saturday, so I had her to myself on a Saturday in Washington DC, and so I was like, we got there on a Friday and we went to the zoo, which I thought would be really entertaining. But an 8-month-old literally can't see anything. And by the way, on a hot afternoon at 1 p.m., do you know what all of the animals are doing?
Oh, they're
sleeping.
Yeah.
They're not even moving, right? So
that's a bummer.
She was like, she couldn't see anything. So the next day I was hell bent. I was like, we're gonna go to the museums and I'm gonna show you cool things. And so I had her in the stroller in the National Art Museum, the Smithsonian National Art Museum, and I was
that's cool.
I was like, this is gonna be great. She like kind of looked at a few things, but even still was not. And I was like, all right. So I strapped her into the carrier facing forward, and I took her around and got her so she was like 2 inches from the paintings, and she wasn't really having a reaction until we got to the Impressionist gallery.
Nice.
And we're in the Impressionist gallery, and there are like 2 tours going on. Everybody's talking really quietly. You know what I mean? Like it's like the people are talking super quietly, giving the tours. And I don't know what it was about Monet, but every time I put her in front of a Monet, she would point and go, ah! So loud.
She's an art girl.
Loud. And everybody was looking. I was like, everybody would look and then see that I had an 8-month-old and would smile and laugh and wave it off. But she distracted absolutely every person. She just absolutely loved the Impressionist gallery. And as soon as I left, she was like, no, I'm not interested in any other art other than Impressionism, which is hilarious because I love Impressionism. It's like my favorite style. Otherwise, I don't really care. So,
that's great.
Jeans are a thing, perhaps.
So wait, cool. I got a good question. Have you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Yes.
Okay, so you've seen where they go to that Impressionist area of the museum and they like look in, and Cameron, he's like looking into the dots and stuff. So our first listener question for today is, do you know that you look like Alan Ruck?
I literally have been in foreign countries where people come up to me and say Cameron, and they can't speak a word.
Oh my gosh, no way! Yeah. Shout out to John Hughes on that one.
Yeah, John Hughes gave that question. This week.
John nailed that one. I've gone as Cameron for Halloween, and literally
with like the big jersey
my wife
on.
Got the big How jersey, big, and literally I just wear the hat, and it's over. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, that was all you had to do for your costume." Like, I just need one of those Scottish little hats or whatever they're, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So
I'm glad we brought that up.
Emma, my daughter Emma, she turns 1 tomorrow. Tomorrow is Emma's birthday. Also my first child, so I'm going through this like 2 months ahead of you. Tops.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So I get it, and we took Emma to the aquarium for the first time. It was kind of a surprise thing. I planned it because Sam, my wife, is super tropical, loves fish, and we scuba dive and blah blah blah. And so going to the aquarium was going to be like a big deal. And so I was like, cool, sweet. We got to do it on Mother's Day. And so we go to this big aquarium on Mother's Day. And like, it was really hard to get her to look at the fish.
Oh, yeah.
But
really?
We finally got up to this like clownfish exhibit. And I got some fantastic photos. I brought my nice camera and everything of her like with a finger on the glass as like little fish swim by, and it was like this 20 seconds is why we came.
Aquarium was literally our first activity that we did. We did it with her when she was like 4 or 5 months, and she was we've gone back a couple times because she just, just staring in awe at the colors. And how's your aquarium? Because the Boston Aquarium is incredible.
It is not great, honestly. Like the best aquarium in Phoenix, I think. Well, so I think the largest aquarium in Phoenix it's called Odyssey. It's in Scottsdale, and it's just it's shorter than you expect, and it's not as nice as you expect. Like it's
was
fine.
That the one where they like took the dolphins out because they were like dying?
I don't. No, definitely not big enough for dolphins here. Yeah.
We won't take a downer on that side.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, not big enough for dolphins, but no, there's no really good aquariums in Phoenix. We found it's closer to home and it's good enough, and so we'll go to this other one instead. It's in a mall, but yeah, it's okay. It's not a fish store.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, we got some birthday activities for Emma though coming up. We got her a couple cupcakes. She's gonna have her first like real, like sugar dessert here on her first birthday. So that'll be exciting to watch her, to see if she like lights up when she has sugar or whatever.
My brother will be mortified. Aurora got her first shot at eating goldfish today and did not like it. Spit it out. And when my brother finds that out, he's going to be like, "That's not your child." He's going to be alarmed.
Nice. Now, is that because he loves goldfish crackers or you love goldfish crackers?
He loves goldfish crackers so much that if he buys a bag of them, the first thing he does is dump half of it in the trash so that he doesn't eat all of them. Yeah. Oh yeah.
My gosh.
Like,
you gotta go with the individual Costco packages. So when you reach and grab some, you just only get so many, and that's it.
It's bad. Yeah.
I thought
Does Zach have any kids?
No.
Oh, that's funny.
Negatory. Yeah.
He gets to be a good uncle then.
I know.
I thought you were gonna say they're gone by the time he gets home from the grocery store. That's what I thought.
Hey, at least he's got some self-control, I guess. That's funny.
Seriously.
Yeah. So we're drinking. Where did I put it? I mean, we know what it is, but Helldiver. It's 2 years older. Older. I mean, maybe. We'll find out. But so, okay. I want to know for this one. I mean, we'll probably throw in a bunch of more personal stuff, but I am intrigued by the, you've talked about like the methodology of the high altitude series.
Yeah.
And you've talked about kind of the recasking and stuff like that for the high altitude series as like a whole batch, basically, like recasting it, batching it, and correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of the thing.
No, you nailed it. Yeah.
So how, like I have the worst questioning form ever because I'm like breaking it up a million times, but like from this to like Peregrine and maybe even the next batch of Peregrine, is there a methodology to separating these, like Peregrine and Helldiver, for example? Like,
the cast type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
PX cognac. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we like the Peregrine's all about the brandy casks, right? It's all about the new wood with the cognac. I'm not against using different types of brandy casks in the future for Peregrine. And we sneak a few cognac casks in when we make Helldiver, but really the majority, I think it was 67% of the liquid in this Helldiver was in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks.
Nice.
And again, like, would I use Amontillado or Oloroso in the future? Hell yes, like definitely. But what makes Peregrine is really both the combination of the style of the whiskey. It's not just putting it in putting it in the cognac barrels. It's also the design of the whiskey from the core blend, as we'll call it,
Yeah,
like the blend
that makes
before
sense, yeah.
we recask it. The core blend is made to handle cognac really
Nice.
well, and to basically pull out a lot of the sort of creamy, elegant vanillins, the sort of velvety orchard fruit, right? I sometimes I say this and I'm like, when I think about what's really cool about the flavor of whiskey is it's really a combination of multiple senses all at once. So you
Totally.
are certainly tasting it, but your nociceptors are also processing the texture of it, and then of course your olfactory glands are giving you specific flavor notes, right? So you're tasting it generally from a sweet, right? Your taste buds are sweet, salty, bitter, umami, and what did I miss? I missed one of them. Sour. Right. So basically, like, your taste buds can do a little bit and give you some direction, but texture is actually why the liquid's in your mouth, as opposed to just nosing the whiskey. And what I think is really cool about this, I talk about this a lot, about like the concept of flavors creating chords, right? So in the same way that with certain musical combinations, playing two notes at once, it's not, oh, there are two notes being played. The fact that you're playing both of them at the same time creates its own sound, right? Flavor's the same thing. The analogy that I use all the time that everybody gets is peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly is great because peanut butter is great and jelly is great, but peanut butter and jelly is great because the combination of the two creates a new flavor that's amazing, right? But what's underrated about that, and that's why people, and this, what's underrated about peanut butter and jelly from a flavor standpoint is the argument as to whether you use creamy peanut butter or you use crunchy peanut butter, right? And people care a lot. And that's not because it dramatically changes the flavor. It's actually because it dramatically changes the texture.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so if you think about the texture as its own piece of a chord, right? Like it's not just the specific tasting notes. It's not just your olfactory glands. It's not even just your olfactory glands and your taste buds. It's the combination all at the same time. And so when I get back to thinking about Peregrine, it's not just, hey, we pull out I said it before, right? It's not just like we pull out the creamy vanillins. It's not just the vanilla. It's the fact that it's vanilla layered on top of something that has fat and texture. In the same way, when I say like velvety orchard fruits, there's a stickiness. The way that if you rub your hand on velvet, it's smooth, but it kind of there's grip.
Kind of grips.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. There's like grip to it. In the same way that if you were to bite into a nectarine, it has that sort of velvety texture on the skin, right? It has much more texture than that, but there's something about combining not just the flavors into a certain organization that's harmonic and beautiful, but actually adding to that harmony the texture component of the whiskey. And so when I think about Peregrine, it's very much about the vanillins and the fruit, but it's also how they pair with the textures as you drink the entire whiskey. Helldiver is much grippier, right? It is a heavily viscous, and sometimes when you get the sort of spice tannin combination with a whiskey, that's when you really get, sounds bad, but like sandpaper grip. And I don't mean it in a way where it's like, I just mean the difference between your level of grip with velvet and your level of grip with sandpaper, right? Where it's like, oh, this thing is latching. It's like it literally is sinking its root into your tongue, right? Like it is taking your palate and just I just imagine the whiskey clawing its way into your palate and just settling in there, right?
Yeah.
So that's what sherry casks do. And so designing a core blend that can handle it without it getting dry and astringent and harsh and still have enough body to really handle Pedro Jimenez sherry, or just frankly Spanish oak sherry casks.
Yeah,
that's really what it's all about. That is its own journey, and that's what Helldiver's about. So it's not just sort of the sort of sticky, dried out raisin fruit that you get from Helldiver versus the sort of bright orchard fruit that you get from Peregrine. It's also about how those different fruit combinations are pairing with how those different fruit, vanillin, and spice combinations are pairing with the texture that we expect to get to match it.
For sure. I love that. Now,
go ahead.
You
were talking about Peregrine real quick. I made an interesting observation recently because I made a monster spreadsheet detailing every release you've ever put out.
Good Lord. Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah. You should see this thing. Maybe you can share my screen. Anyway, it's got just basically all the stats and all the different years and components, whether they were corn or rye, and what went into what and what went into each. And then, of course, for the high altitudes, it's got what the finishing casks are too. And what I noticed was you dropped the French limousine from Peregrine 1 to Peregrine 2. Did you just use them all for batch 1, or what was the deal with that?
No, we went with just more. We wanted to go with more New American oak, and we also found better quality, juicier cognac casks. And so the French limousine just was kind of unnecessary for the second Peregrine, and that was really all it was about. It was more a omission through addition, right? It was like it's like we want more of these things, and then it was just like, well, what are we gonna do? Put one French limousine? No, we're not. We're just gonna.
You just moved beyond.
Yeah. That's funny because nobody's ever asked us that, and it's a good question. Yeah, it was an active decision about what we wanted out of the casks, as opposed to being like, oh, there was some problem with this one. It was just like, it's kind of unnecessary. We're getting all of the new wood that we want from the New American oak, and we're getting all of the cognac and all of the finishing flavors that we're looking for from the cognac cask, and it just sort of became the appendix of the blend, which is kind of the way.
Now, do you still have any limousine casks that are rocking some?
We've used them for single barrels. We've used them for use them for aging component. Yeah, we're aging some components in them.
Nice.
Yeah. That actually, there's a good question in there of how often do you get rid of barrels, or like, are you able to say like, nope?
Oh, really?
Did you say so much?
Yeah.
And by get rid of, what would your definition be of that?
Sell them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not actually
barrels?
what I meant, but I get it though.
Yeah. I thought you meant empty barrels.
Yeah, I did mean empty barrels. That was interesting.
Though. Oh, okay.
You meant empty barrels, and Cole, you were interpreting it.
I was wondering if you were like selling like just liquid. Hey, we don't like this juice. Someone buy it.
Yeah.
No, honestly, the craziest thing is like we are just doing a season of single barrels, right? And so we make similar the first half of the high altitude process. We make a blend.
Yeah.
Put it into a bunch of different types of finishing barrels. So way more finishing barrels. And then we further mature those, and then we sell the individual barrels as single barrels. Really fun process, creates a ton of diversity, and I would say 5% of the barrels are unusable. The liquid just doesn't turn out, where there's something wrong with the cask, so it gets funky for some reason. It's just the nature of introducing that added variable.
They go into the pigeon release. That's right.
Yeah, we go into the pigeon release. Yeah, exactly. No, and honestly, like we've done wild experiments with them. Really cool, fun stuff, right? Just like we took one barrel that had gotten too just got too harsh and dry like 3 years ago, and we've transferred it into a drum, like just like a food grade drum.
Yeah.
And these things are it's perfectly sealed, it's airtight, right? Like in theory, nothing should be
No
happening.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the absolute nonsense. It has been slowly mellowing and changing.
Oh, nice.
Right? Like there's a reason why so many industries have demijohns, right? Like basically inert vessels for their liquid, and it's incredible the change that occurs.
That's cool.
And so we've done all kinds of stuff. Like we've recast certain things like 3 or 4 times to try. It's like, all right, well, this thing's developed a flaw, so let's see if we can fix it with this. Nope, that made it worse. Let's see if we can fix it with this. Nope, because it's like, look, if you have a second fill barrel and you don't know what to do with it, you're just going to sell it for $100. Why not? Like, what's the difference between that and taking liquid that isn't working and giving it a try and just seeing if you stumble into, not necessarily just stumbling into a good solution, but what we're constantly doing is gathering data, right? And data makes it sound more scientific than it is. It's more about getting a feel
give yourself some more credit. Come on.
No. I what I mean by that is like it sounds more scientific versus magical. Right? Like cool. Data makes it sound like whiskey's lost its magic. Oh, we're just crunching numbers. That's not what I mean.
See.
What I mean is we're getting it's the feedback loop. It's like, oh, interesting. We left it in this container, and the science actually may say one thing, or people in science may say one thing. But here's what's happening, right? Like, and I don't, I think one of the funniest things about my personal career in whiskey is when I was a spirits buyer and I was a super big whiskey snob early on in my career, like I didn't want to hear about the magic of whiskey making ever. I was like, no. I want to hear the rationale, right? Like your whiskey went from this to this. What chemical changes happened, and I would get in the weeds with people and they'd be like, well, it's just the magic of the whiskey barrel, shut up and tell me what happened. Like, I want to know what happened, right? And people would people would say, oh, this, this happens or this doesn't happen, or when you drink whiskey this way, whatever. Like, we don't need to get into the neck pour, but, like my point is like these things that didn't have like a solid foundation of science behind them, I was just like, I'm uninterested. And now on the other side of it, I'm like, we don't know exactly what's happening, so you gotta just try things and feel it out and see what happens.
It's art, man.
You gotta just get and you gotta get the constant feedback of like, we did this with this, and we know what it tasted like beforehand, and we know what it tastes like now. And then it's because, especially with blending, but especially with how we make whiskey, the way we make whiskey is constant creative problem solving. There's total like it's and this is why I think making music is so interesting, because it's the same thing. Like when you make music, you come up with a riff, but then you have to fit it into a whole song with structure, right? Like whiskey making is like that. You make some sort of combination of flavor and texture, or with the high altitude collection, you make something that you pray will develop into that. And then once it gets to its next form, you have to coax it into a unified harmonic melody, like it needs to really actually, all the pieces need to come together, and there's all this tweaking and all this stuff that you have to do, and you have a finite number of resources to do it, but you have a lot of time, right? So it's like, okay, we have this. So for us, the portfolio of whiskey that we blend with is, I don't know, 500 times bigger than when we started in terms of the diversity of flavors, because we've been taking, if we have 100 barrels of 10-year-old rye that's all uniform that we bought, 3 years ago, we've been taking those 100 barrels and putting 3 of them in this, 5 of them in that. Then we use 10 of them here, and then we put 5 more in this. And we've been doing that with 10-year-old, 14-year-old, 18-year-old, 24-year-old whiskeys of all different types. And so there's just, and it's just like, we have this problem. Well, what about this whiskey that we were messing around with 2 years ago? Let's pull a sample of that, and then we'll use it, 2% of it, and it goes into something, and it's like, there's the skeleton key that unlocked this whiskey.
Right.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember batch 3 had rye finished in Speyside barrels or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I noticed when I was making my ridiculous spreadsheet was you also had some of those barrels in batch 2, I think. Is that correct?
I think so.
Nice.
Like, I remember seeing them in another batch, for what it's worth. There were two early batches that definitely mentioned some sort of Scotch barrel finished rye. So like, it's just funny how like you could take a little bit of this and put it in that, and then just like boom, something just like some harmonious like resonance and just like lines up perfectly.
It's funny how bad it's funny how amazing the language is. Like language, my brother and I, when we were kids, used to make up words. I don't know if you guys did that.
Nice.
And the quality of a good made up word is that it describes something accurately that doesn't have a clear synonym.
I get it.
Yeah.
Right? Like what's the point of coming up with a word and you're like, well, what's that mean? And you can just say one other word and mean exactly the same thing. You haven't invented a good word, right? So when you think about like the language of music is so rich, it's so perfect. There's melodies and harmonies and just like and resonance and all these things that when you say it, they evoke, you know exactly what they mean. They're so evocative of what sound is. It doesn't exist in flavor. We're so bad at flavor. Flavor does not
That's a really good point.
Flavor does not have the descriptive accuracy and precision that is bequeathed to music and sound. And I think that's why I find myself using musical language to describe flavor so often, because I think I would use the language of taste and smell and texture if it were available to me in a way that I felt was really accurate.
Yeah, I get it though, because like food stuff, like you require food to live. You do not require music to live. Therefore, people who are passionate about music are like truly passionate on a whole other level, because there's a million people over there just stuffing their face because they have to live.
I
used the term staccato referring to someone the other day. And I was like, he's very like, and I couldn't find a better word, but I was like, the way this guy is like very staccato. Like what he says is very firm and like, it's a hard,
quick.
You know what I mean when I say it?
Yeah,
short, quick. You know, get it out there, but don't go any further. Yeah,
right.
I thought you were going to say that you described a whiskey that way, which would make
I'm sure I could.
Total sense to me, right? Like a whiskey that was very abrupt in its flavor transitions, right?
And
like
it all makes sense when you say it.
It would be total. Staccato's like a perfect word for that. And again, you have to borrow it from music to get the language you want.
We know you love your music references. Have you ever played instruments or anything?
A little bit. I'm not much of a natural musician, unfortunately. I'm decent on the hilariously. I played drums when I was a kid, and I'm decent on the bongos, on the hand drums these days.
Oh yeah.
These days. But no, I never.
That's funny.
It was one of those things where I really got more interested in music once I was like in college. And it's a hard time to like, I feel like if your parents didn't make you learn how to play an instrument when you were 8, you were like, it's too late. So I did try to learn how to play I took piano lessons when I was in college for a couple of years, but it was just like, I was like in college studying. I was a a Division I athlete, so I was like, I had 28 hours of practice and training every week. It was like so hard to get into. It was so hard to get into the musicianship. I am a very competitive ballroom dancer.
Ooh,
so my wife Sam used to be.
Music,
she used to be like huge into it, but it just dropped off after college and whatever. But like Sam was a huge ballroom dancer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're still keeping it up though, yeah?
Yeah.
With your wife or
with a kid and everything?
I try to get a couple lessons in with my pro partner every like every month. I try to get 3 or 4 in.
So
it
cool.
used to be a ton. I used to dance a ton. Actually, our honeymoon, hilariously, my wife and my honeymoon, I had a competition in Barcelona. I had a dance competition in Barcelona, and I was like, why don't we put like a Spain portion at the beginning of the comp, before the comp,
and then your partner came out and like somewhat joined.
Yeah. Oh, she was.
That's great.
She was in. Well, she was competing with her pro partner.
Oh, gotcha.
And then she and I competed in the pro am.
Oh wow.
On the amateur
That's so cool.
Oh, I thought you were the pro. No.
No. No. I've only been dancing. I've been dancing. I have been ballroom dancing for 17 years now, so I've been doing it for a while. Yeah.
Cool. Can you really call yourself an am then, huh? Come on, give yourself some more credit. Come on.
I respect that a ton.
Cool.
I'm not nowhere near good or anything, but like I remember me and my sister when I was in my senior year of high school, we were like, let's just do a dance class together. So we did swing dancing, but nowhere near. But it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's like
for sure.
People don't realize like how intricate it is, and like it's not just simple stuff, and you can grow and get better and do some crazy moves.
I think that's why I like it so much. Is there's every time you figure something out, you suddenly feel like you're such a better dancer. Then you plateau, and then you discover something else. And every time when you discover something else, you're like, oh God, this makes everything I learned. I have to go back and relearn it with this new aspect of the technique. Cool. And it's so hard. And then it's so gratifying.
Yeah.
I really like it.
So are there any YouTube videos out there of you at a dance competition?
Probably, yeah.
Yes, we gotta find them. We gotta find them.
But it won't say my name in it, right? I'll just be in the. I'll be
nice.
So much ballroom competition is like
Barcelona.
20 different people on the floor at the same time.
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, that's
cool.
Maybe I'll send you guys
favorite
video.
style.
Please do. Please do.
A little bit. Yeah, just like let's add me in a little bit.
Yeah. That'd be epic.
My favorite style, probably waltz. I love the waltz.
That's cool.
It's the dance that feels the easiest to me, not because it's an easy dance. It's just like when I waltz, it cooperates with my natural movement and rhythm in a way that I really enjoy.
Love it. That's so cool.
And so I'm coming at this from the music side because I'm pretty big into music. My mom was a vocal music teacher for many decades, and I've been playing classical piano my whole life. And I play everything but woodwinds. So like saxophone, I can't do anything with a reed or anything like that.
Got it.
I play everything else. I was like captain of the drumline in high school and everything. So I'm all about music and rhythm and everything. So like waltz as in like 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's where you're at.
Yes, although I like what I really like about waltz is how it phrases. So it's more like 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3.
Nice. And that explains your palette. It's like you talk about like the 1 to 10, and sometimes you're like going up and going down. And
I talk about the 1 to 10.
You get a little bit more forte, Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good.
I used to play the cello, but I wasn't that great.
Oh, dude. Are there any YouTube videos of you playing cello?
No. But I played for 9 years, so Decent amount.
So it's time you busted it out and threw something on YouTube then, huh?
Yeah. Dude, and the funny thing is, I haven't played it in like 12 plus years. But I have a feeling if I just picked it up, I would pick it right back up. Like it's one of the it's like bicycle, you know?
What's the Glencairn? It's turquoise. What's going on there?
Ooh. That's cool. Ooh, those are terracotta.
I love these. My brother bought these for me for Christmas years ago. I think they're stone. So cool. And what I really like about them is I can wash them in the dishwasher, but they don't hold the glass soap smell.
Oh, nice. Cool.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like if you dishwash Glencairns, they start to smell they start to smell like clean glass, which has a smell to it, which is I find, and I'm very, very sensitive to, my palate's super sensitive to soap, which makes working with rye a little tricky for me. I really don't like soapy rye.
Yeah,
exactly, right? So so I've always had a real issue with them. And the other thing about it is it's really heavy.
I love that.
Awesome.
Which I heavy glassware.
I like the feeling of like I like there's something about holding those little Glencairn glasses. Sometimes I feel like there's just not substantial enough, you know? It's just it's too yeah.
If I really love this and get too excited, I'm just gonna crush it in my hand right now. Yeah. Like the whole.
Do you know where he got them? Because what you guys should do is work with them and do merch. Which brings me to my next question.
I know, right?
Idea.
Shout out to Kyle here. Or no, it wasn't Kyle, it was somebody else. Anyway, merch question about, dude, and it's me too, because I'm desperate for this. I think this might be the third.
Looks so cool. The Nike
we've interviewed you 3 times, and this is probably the 3rd time I'm asking you about merch. I want a topographical map Glencairn all the way around, and like I will buy like six of them, because if I break one, I would just die. So like I need to make sure I have a lifetime supply of topographical map Glencairns.
I it's crazy that we haven't done it, to be honest. We really should. Merch is one of those things where merch is one of those things that's tricky for us, because here's why. And this is just the inner workings of, this is the really interesting inner workings of Found North. And if you're into I don't know, if you're out there listening to this and you're into entrepreneurship, I think about this all the time within the context of entrepreneurship. We are a company that does very few things as well as we possibly can. So there are a lot of companies that are successful as entrepreneurs because they iterate, they move really, really fast. They get it 80% done, and then they fire it off there. And then when it works, they iterate again, and they make it a little better, and then they keep going and they keep moving. I have a number of friends who are entrepreneurs, who are successful entrepreneurs, and it's just all about, for them, it's just all about like speed and knowing that like good enough, right? Like perfection is the enemy of great, or whatever. Is
trial and error here,
it's such a like, it's such a cliche that makes a lot of sense for a lot of businesses. We're not like that. We are like, you could just tell by our copy. Like, how long I spend looking at the copy, being like, should I say it? That I will change one sentence, the structure, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for 5 minutes. And it's like, does it matter? Probably not. But it's one of those things where it permeates all the entire culture of our company, to the point where we make much better whiskey because of it. That's the biggest thing, is like, we're so often, we will do things like stop production and just be like, no, we don't like where this is. Like, stop. We don't care about hitting our timeline anymore. We need to tweak this. We need to add something to it. We need to go to the facility. We don't like how this is coming out. It's like, we'll make a change, and I will put those whiskeys side by side for somebody, and 98% of people won't be able to taste the difference between 1 and 2, right? Like, but we do that. Now, we don't have to like disrupt our production schedule all the time, but we are that obsessive about all the things we do. And when you are how many people do we have now? 7? When you're a 7-person company, like, who's self-funded, you have such limited resources, and by limited resources, I just mean limited time. And so merch is one of those things where we've tried to do it a couple times fast, and we just like, we don't like it. We don't like the shirt that came out, so we're gonna put this down because we have whiskey to make, you know. And it's one of those things where like we probably should just do it pretty well, and friggin' forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, we probably should just do it pretty well and be done and be happy with it because people want it. But it just grinds on our nature. If we're gonna do merch, we want to like come up with the rock glass idea that you just came up with, and find the partner and make it, and be like, no, we're not going to mass produce 5,000 of these. We're going to make 100 of them. You know, like that's how we would do it. And it's just been on the back burner. It's been not even on the back burner. It's been on the burner that is sitting right next to the burner we're using. Like it's been right.
It's about to boil over. Yeah.
For like 3 years we've
nice.
You know, it's like every 6 months we have a merch meeting, and we're like, all right, we can breathe. We just finished a release. Like, let's talk about, you know, people want merch. How will we do it? And we're like, get 8 hours of work done on it, and then we get pulled into, you know, a supply meeting, and all of a sudden we have some crisis, and it's like, so that's it. That's why it hasn't happened. Not for any better reason than that.
I totally get it.
You need a third party. I know some.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, well, what he alluded to was, you know, if you just reach out to a third party and try to just make it happen real quick, it's never going to live up to the standards that you want it to be.
That's the problem. Right.
So, and of course, shout out to Drew Hall on that one for the merch and the topographical map Glencairn reference. But like, I totally get it, because yes, Cole and I here, we do our best. We are not the largest podcast in terms of fan base, but I hold myself to very high standards. Where like, I don't need the mic and the camera that I have, but it's very important to me to put my best foot forward. And this is where I want to spend my time and energy. Where like, I get that, like, you as a company have core values, and you stick to what's most important to you, regardless of whether you're like making the masses happy or if you're making yourself happy in what you're making.
Like if we do a awards show, we're not going to do 1 million platinum awards.
Yeah.
But go on, Mick. You were saying
no.
something.
I think I try to be, and it's really tough because Zach sends me people reviewing our whiskey, and I can't read them. I can't read reviews. Can't do it and it's funny because I try to be very.
You're your own worst critic.
I try to be very input oriented as a human.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right, like I care more about what I put into it than what I got out of it. Right, because what I put into it is much more meaningful. What I put into life is much more meaningful to me in terms of who I am as a person than what the external outcome is. Right. And reading, like, sometimes I read reviews about our whiskey, and I'm like, I can't, not because I don't respect people's opinions. Like, it's just, sometimes I feel like, people are writing sometimes I read reviews where people are writing what they think their audience wants to hear, as opposed to what's in the glass. And it's like, and I'll see some commentary about, you know, the new Helldiver, and I'm like, that's the opposite of what this whiskey is. I don't know. And so it's like, and so I'm trying so hard to be input oriented. And so there's a time where I'm just like, I can't have to just separate myself from this because I think you can get too much in your head. I think it's too easy, by the way, to get too much in your head about like, and this happens all the time when we do barrel picks, actually, which I find really interesting. So we'll do a barrel pick, and we'll have. I love when we do barrel pick by committee. You know, you've got some club and they send 12 people, and they're. You guys did this, right?
Yeah,
and they're doing a barrel
we had like
pick.
30 people, 25 or something, but it was
we did a purely democratic barrel pick. Like we went through the whole friggin' room.
That's actually better. What I'm talking about is when it's 8 people and we're doing a lunch and you're sitting there with 8 people doing a lunch, and the 8 people start talking about what they think their audience will like as opposed to what they like.
Come on.
And I'm like, guys, if the 8 of you think this is the best whiskey, don't pick this one because you think you have some sort of differentiated super palate that's like, I don't sit here and go, oh, I don't make whiskey for myself. I make it for my audience. It's the most arrogant thing I could possibly say. If I didn't think the whiskey was as good as the whiskey as possibly can be for me, then I don't think it's going to be as good for the audience as it possibly can be.
That
the best judge.
is the definition of selling out.
So
it truly is.
Now, to be fair, like Sammy and I are both very aware of our blind spots, right? Like there are certain flavors that we are super sensitive to, and when we're blending something, we might be neurotic about something, and it's like, are we doing it to the detriment of the rest of the whiskey, right? And so we'll catch each other. So, you know, Sammy comes from a bartending background, and I don't know what you guys know about bartenders, but bartenders like bitter. They love bitter shit, and it's because they're so bored of making the sweetest sweet cocktails that they want something that's like broody and bitter. Bartender's favorite drink is Negroni. You know what I mean? Like,
Nice.
and it's like they like Amaro. They take Amaro shots. That's what bartenders do. You know, they're like bartenders at fancy cocktail bars are taking Amaro shots. They're not taking shots of some sweet, you know, whatever, some sweet tea shot. You
some
know,
Midori.
They are. And so Sammy has a blind spot where he doesn't taste bitter. You know, he just doesn't. And we'll be tasting something and he'll be like, "This is perfect." And I'm like, Sammy, this is like 3 degrees too bitter. And he's like, oh shit, yes, you're right. Hold on. Like,
that's great like, though.
So we do have blind spots, and we work well together to like to navigate our blind spots. But my point is, in the end, like the whiskey, like I need to make the whiskey not in response to what I think people are saying or what they're going to say about the whiskey. I need to make the whiskey, and Sammy and I need to make the whiskey to be as good as we think the whiskey can be for us, and that's likely going to make the whiskey as good as it can be for the consumer.
Yeah. Now, speaking of single barrels, we were offered an Amburana barrel in our pick, but collectively as a group, I think the Amburana in season 4 finished last. And I know that you've been a major proponent of the Amburana barrel. I have in front of me here an unopened Amburana barrel. A buddy of mine was out and about in Kentucky or something and found this for me. So I want to know what it is that you loved about these Amburanas so much.
Okay, I want to be very clear. We've never aged anything in Amburana.
Hey.
So
let's be very clear.
So season 4, the season 4 single barrels were really. I actually have. I was just looking back here because I have.
Nice.
This is a French oak one, and it's not aged in French oak.
That's what we picked.
Yeah.
So this is one of the. You want to talk about like us doing really weird projects and testing things and tweaking.
This is one
season 4 was one of those where basically we were working with Kelvin. Kelvin does a process where they toast their barrels over open flame, and so you're effectively in that process. You're effectively smoking the barrel, and so we said like, what wood are you using as the fuel source? What are you burning to toast the barrels? And they said, oh, American oak. And we said, well, what if you used other things?
Yeah.
And so season 4 was all in new American oak. but we used Spanish oak, French oak, Amburana, and American oak
Yeah.
as the fuel source to toast the barrels. And what I
Thank you
found
for
with
making
the-
that clear. And I have been
Yes.
championing that, by the way. Every friggin'
Yeah.
Discord I'm on, I have explained that
this
at
is
least 3
not
times.
I
Amburana
appreciate
barrel.
that because we've done such a crappy job of putting that on the website of what they actually
funny.
are. It's like on my short list of items that I need to get to in the next 2 months.
That's funny.
It's reworking the website so that people know how the single barrels work and what each season was about. But what I liked about I didn't like all the Amburanas. They actually tended to be hit or miss. But the ones where we smoked, the new American oaks where we smoked Amburana, there tended to be this like exotic wood spice, like sandalwood almost, that was coming through, and the phenolics were attaching to the whiskey in a way that I found really charming. I also really liked. I mean, honestly, it was barrel to barrel. Probably a bunch of my favorites were French oaks. Which one did you guys end up picking?
We went with French. I personally like the American slightly better though. But
interesting. What was your barrel?
I got it right here.
Yeah,
our barrel was 5683. I know it's in your basement somewhere.
Oh, it's definitely in my bed. You want me to go grab it?
No, it's fine.
I mean,
if you want
I got
to.
one.
So frankly,
right there.
I have had many people who are not sentimentally attached to our podcast review this barrel and say that it's fantastic.
Yeah. If you get it, I'm getting it.
I think we have the best single barrel program in the game. I'm going to tell you that right now. I really think it's maybe the most underrated thing that we do.
It's great.
And it's because it doesn't get talked about very much because when you do a single barrel, there's 200 bottles or whatever it is, and then it's done, right? So it's like just where you make 6,000 bottles of something, enough people get it, enough people have opinions about it it's the single barrels are almost too dispersed. But here's my shamelessly advocating for our single barrel program. I'll say a couple. I'll just make bullet points. Bullet point number 1: the whiskey we put in there is ridiculous. We put this one is a technically season 4 is an 8-year age statement if you want it to even an age statement, but it's 8-year wheat with 15, 20, and 21-year corn, and it's a majority 15, 20, and 21-year corn.
Yeah, it's old.
This thing is
you don't
like
get
old
single barrels that old.
You don't get old ass single barrels like these.
Yeah.
The first single barrel we did, season 1, was a 12-year, was like 30% 12-year, and then it was 70% 19 and 21 year. All of our single barrels are like this. It's like, we use a 10-year, we use and it's frankly, they're not cheap to make.
I believe it.
It creates like pricing disparity for us, because it's like we can't sell our single barrels for $150 a bottle. We probably could, but we don't want to because it's because we want it to be accessible, right? The point of single barrels is to make them accessible. $100 is already expensive. But all right. So first of all, the whiskey in there is old, and the starting blends that we make are excellent. Like they're maybe a notch below the high altitude collection, but they're really, really good. All right, that's 1. 2, the season concept is incredibly cool because what it means that when you buy a single barrel from any one of the seasons that we make, that is an original one of a kind blend.
Totally.
And it will never exist again, right? So the whole point of single barrels is their uniqueness. The whole point of single barrels is that they are one of one. So when you're buying a single barrel from a bourbon distillery that is saying, hey, this is our usual 10-year product, but instead of vatting it, we're just going to, these 150 barrels from this lot, which all taste the same, are going to be our single barrel program. Like there's no uniqueness to that. And by the way, when they come out with the single barrels next year of the exact same thing, they're going to taste exactly the same. And that's an exaggeration. There's enough natural disparity that there is uniqueness in all single barrel programs. But when you compare ours, where each season isn't represented by some product of ours that you can buy on the shelf.
Totally.
Right? Like if you buy a Buffalo Trace single barrel, you can just buy Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not the same, but they're damn close, right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
you can't go buy Found North Season 4 on the shelf. It doesn't exist other than as a single barrel. And then lastly, because we create so much diversity within the seasons in terms of what finishing barrels we use, like there were, what was it, 40 Season 4 single barrels or something like that, 36 of them or something. We used Char 1, you'd use Char 0, Char 1, Char 2, Char 3. We used heavy and medium toast, right? So there's seven different variables there.
Yeah.
And then we used 4 different wood species to toast the barrels. So you ended up with like 2 or 3 barrels max that were of the same process.
Yeah.
And still amongst those, they tasted different, which means the seasons are different from each other. The seasons are different from what we make. The seasons are old and high quality. And if you buy one barrel within a season, it likely won't taste anything else like the other barrel in a different season. So the uniqueness level of these single barrels is like through the roof, and they're all cast strength.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I loved you talking about them as like mini, you didn't say this, but I'm putting words in your mouth, mini high altitude series, where it's like, it is the blend you've already created, and then you're recasking them in interesting casks to see what happens. Tell us about the orange liqueur from season 5.
Oh yeah. Season 5.
That's a banger. That was
I look
so
forward
good.
to one day figuring that one out.
I was like, oh man, we bought. I think I only did one of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah. The single barrel. The really fun thing about the single barrel program is, if it doesn't work, it just goes into Found North Pigeon. No, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? But I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there is a whiskey that we will make next year that we are making 100% because of the success that we've had with barrels using a certain cast type. And I won't say what cast type it is, but it's
totally the cherry one.
Right? Oh my god, that cherry one's so good.
Well, I've got it up in front of me. There was one orange liqueur and there's one cherry liqueur, and then cognac, Madeira, blah blah blah.
Totally. So I think what's super fun about the single barrels is they get to be a testing ground. If you would we would never be like, what's an orange bird? We would never make the
Oriole.
Down North Oriole. Yeah, exactly. and just do orange liqueur if we didn't test it first. You know what I mean? We wouldn't just do it. But
write it down, everyone.
Like, holy moly, this is good, right? And it's like, I just bought 6 more of those barrels.
Nice.
For future season of single barrels, because it's so bloody good.
That's
the orange liqueur.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Is it like a Curacao type barrel?
Yeah, exactly. It's
cool.
No, I think it's technically brandy.
I got
so I think it's more like
what's that one?
Is it Grand Marnier? No.
Yeah, Grand Marnier. It was just like
Grand
brandy
Marnier.
and orange. Yeah.
It's more. I think they might even be. These places make us sign NDA, make the broker sign NDAs. So I don't know. I'm literally just. It could be Grand Marnier or something equivalent to that.
Parker's Heritage did a Grand Marnier cast finish.
Did they?
Well,
I'm not surprised.
They did orange liqueur or whatever it was. Finish. Yeah.
I don't know if it was notably great though. I don't think people like huddled around that one too much.
I will. But
I bet Found North is good.
You would say that.
Yeah. What I will say about bourbon, it's really interesting because sometimes we get a lot of commentary of people being like, I don't like finished whiskeys, but I like Found North's high altitude collection. And they're usually talking about finished bourbons. Like, let's be real. They're not like, nobody's sitting there being like, oh, I won't have a Macallan because it's a finished whiskey. It's
totally.
Like,
Sherry Macallan,
Right. It's sherry. Like, that's their cask that they use. It's not just a finish, right? But I think with bourbon, a lot of times the problem you have is that it's a hat on a hat.
It is.
Right. They're basically taking a complete whiskey and they're trying to make it different by adding a finish to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the big difference between what we're doing and what a bourbon that is, you put bourbon in New American Oak for 10 years, and then you take it out and you put it into a Grand Marnier cask.
Yeah.
Like, you already have a complete wood profile. In fact, once you get over 10 years, that bad boy's starting to get over oaked.
For sure.
And then you put it in a fresh cask, like
Mm-hmm.
you're nuking it with flavor that it doesn't need, right?
Yeah.
Like that's and so I get
Especially
why
at that age. Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why I get why bourbon people are like, I don't like finished bourbons. And it's like, yeah, because if you made a bourbon that's 12 years old and then you put it in a I'm just doing my best not to swear because my kid is just starting to speak.
Take it up, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's just like, and I'm worried that her first word is going to be the F word.
Yeah.
No, her first word is hi. Hi.
Oh.
You get a lot of eyes over here too.
Anyway,
Yeah.
You put it in an effing, you know, Cabernet cask, and it's just like you're gonna just nuke this thing with too much. It's too much of the cask influence. So
here's what you got to do. You got to start saying hi instead of effing. So you put it in a high Cabernet cask.
You put it in a high Cabernet. Right.
That's what you do right there. So we referenced the Found North Pigeon already many times, which we love so much. And shout out to your drinking buddy for writing in a question on that too. But a couple different barrel types to ask. So your drinking buddy also asked, have you ever experimented with Nocino barrels? Italian liqueur?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Nocinos. No, we haven't. No? But not because I'm not interested. We haven't because it hasn't been on any broker list that I've looked at.
Fair. Totally fair.
And the other piece is I'm really picky about where we source the barrels from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you gotta be.
It's taken me a long time to find brokers that I really trust because they're, you know, like we use Midwest. Majority of our finishing casks come through Midwest, and that's because I know and they have a lot of information on, hey, these 6 Madeira casks are this type of Madeira from this producer, you know. And what's great about our team is Sammy and Chris, who's you guys know Chris, who's like, it's a disservice to him that he's our VP sales and marketing because like the guy has a degree from Harriet Watt. Like, he is a not only a distilling expert, but he's worked in the industry for 15 years.
Yeah.
He could give a TEDx talk on wine varietals. You know what I mean? Like,
he's the youngest keeper of the Quaith.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, you might have been usurped sometime in the last 10 years, but when he became a keeper of the Quaith, he was the youngest.
That's so cool.
But like Chris, you know, we'll send the list. I'll send the list to Sammy and Chris, and then I'll just sit there listening to them be like, oh no, you know, we don't want to buy, you know, Piperone Amarone casks. We want to buy Del Fornos because Del Fornos are blah blah bullshit. You know, and I'm like, I'm just like, all right, you know, I just want to make sure they smell good, that the wood quality is really good, and they come from a source that I trust. But these guys are getting into the nuance of like who the producer is, what the style is, what that's going to do to the whiskey. So again, I'd love to buy a Nocino cask if it fit if it cleared the high standards of the rest of the team.
Nice.
Well, you also mentioned you mentioned brandy, and you mentioned your willingness to work with brandy casks. Kyle asks, any interest in apple brandy?
Calvados. We've done Calvados.
Oh, nice.
We've done Calvados.
Where? When?
Single barrels.
Oh, nice.
Single barrels.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
What I would say about our Calvados casks is the good ones are really good, and the bad ones are unusable.
Oh, rough.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. That there are certain it's really interesting. There are certain cask types where the whiskey they make is always like we actually when I'm QCing the barrels,
Mm.
and they're not ready yet, I'll still tier them so that as I look at I'll look at it to see if they're developing into like if they're getting better, right? So it's like I'll write my notes about it, but then I'll also just be like, this is tier 2 or this is tier 3 or whatever.
Mm.
And then when we review it again a month later, it's like, okay, this tier 3 is now tier 2.
Nice.
And sometimes tier 2s are ready, right? Like it doesn't all have to do it. Like sometimes a tier 2, it's like, oh, this is good. It's not. I don't think it's magical, and it's amazing how often like I will send 4 tier 1s and a tier 2 to a group, and they're just fall in love with the tier 2, and it's like, okay, with single barrels, I'm not going to try to, there people are, and maybe they're trying to crowd please, but
I was going to say that. You never know. You never know.
But hey, no, like the reality is that you might not pick the orange liqueur because you don't think you can sell orange liqueur to your audience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you might think it's the tastiest, but you don't sell. People need to be thoughtful about their group. I know I'm killing people for what I said earlier, but I get it. I respect the fact that like if you run a group and you're buying 200 bottles that everybody needs to buy and like, I get why people are nervous about like, I'm not buying a cherry liqueur because there are going to be 100 people who are like, F that, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Right? So I get it. But anyway, there are certain cast types where they're always like the worst case scenario is tier 2, but they don't produce as many tier 1s. And then there are cast types where it's like the hits are tier 1s and literally they're not even tier 3s. They're flawed. Like I literally will just write flawed. And I've had a number of flawed Calvados, and I don't know what it is. It starts to get sometimes it starts to get this like musty acid funk to it. It's the only way I can describe it.
Interesting.
The fruit notes, the top notes that are all the fruit notes start to taste like a little bit like apple cider, frankly. You ever not apple, hard cider, hard apple cider. You ever taste hard apple cider that isn't good and it tastes just like a little over fermented kind of like it champagne, bad champagne or bad sparkling wine can taste like that. It's got that like little sort of fermenty flavor to it. Sometimes Calvados finishes tip into that, and it's
interesting.
It's a pain in the ass because they'll be tasting pretty good, like they're getting better, and then it's just like,
oh wow.
Okay. You're like, oh great, another one for the pigeon blend.
That pigeon blend, man. We gotta do that. Gotta try that sometime. You gotta send that our way.
I think we have like, we've only made 5 seasons, and I think I've thrown out 2 or 3 Calvadoses.
Wow.
It's like pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Pretty annoying.
So let's drink, and then we'll talk more.
Let's definitely drink.
Well, actually, before we drink, I gotta know what you spilled all over your pants earlier.
Yeah.
Anybody who's tuning in, like skipped forward and is tuning in, is like, what the? No, I poured Helldiver 2025 all over myself.
Oh,
nice.
I had you guys were pre-pouring it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna pre-pour it too. I pre-poured it.
Yeah, we're gonna need
the bottle on this.
Some pants soaked tasting notes here coming up shortly.
My pants smell great.
Yeah. That's so funny. My buddy, one time, so Phoenix, it gets hot, of course.
Hold on.
In Phoenix.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I don't want you to drink it yet.
Okay.
I would like, especially with Helldiver. Do you guys have glasses of water next to you?
I do.
Yeah. Well, I have normal water and soda water.
Hilarious thing that I learned the hard way. When I used to do whiskey tastings. I would do whiskey tastings, especially Scotch tastings. And we'd have cask strength Scotch. And I would talk for like 45 minutes without stop. And when you talk, you guys know what happens. Your palate just dries out. Just like dries out. And all of a sudden I'd be like, people would be like, what do you think of this? I'd be like, I love this whiskey. And I'd take a sip of it and it would be dry on dry. And I'd be like, it's really good. It's awesome. So my request before you drink these, because
Mm-hmm.
they're hell divers. That's
Yeah.
Spanish oak sherry cask. Like, just make sure you're just take a few sips of water. Make sure you're, because we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes nonstop without drinking anything.
How'd
And
that
this thing
happen? Yeah.
is, I think, especially Helldiver First Flight will taste bone dry if you're putting it on a dry palate.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So the nose, though, is a lot more.
Yeah. Do I need to flush my nose with water
drinking,
too?
Yeah.
Do
I
it,
was
neti pot.
drinking as my entry buzz the First Flight Helldiver, and the nose is like much more vanilla and yet still bright fruity on the 2025.
Yes. Okay. I thought you were about to say that about First Flight, and I was going to
No.
reach through the screen and smack you.
No.
So we didn't say this on the show, but I did a little blind flight of the pre-release Helldiver, which, if you remember correctly, the Chill Filtered podcast got the very first release of this.
That's right. We got
In
to
the
announce
world.
the name, right?
Yeah, that's
No,
right.
we didn't
We
get to
didn't.
announce the name.
We had to
but
bleep
yeah,
out the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, we did. We had to literally bleep it. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
funny.
it was
Bleep it
great.
because I
we had
said
a-
it. My drunk ass said
yeah.
it at the end of the
We
thing.
got him.
I was like,
We
oh
got
yeah,
him.
that's why this Helldiver, and I was like,
We're
shit.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
pre-release original Helldiver and new Helldiver. I will withhold my opinions until after we taste, but I did a little blind and I have a summation. I checked my
wow.
cheat sheet and I afterwards I knew which was which, and I'll tell you at the end here because I don't want to influence Cole at all.
All right, sorry, Cole, we interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, he's sipping. Don't ask Cole to say anything right now, man.
Never mind. Don't say anything.
So I will say this is.
Oh my goodness. What an improvement. And it was good to begin with.
Oh, there you go. He's talking already.
Yeah. Nick, you keep outdoing yourself, man.
On the
That
nose.
is a beautiful blend of fruit and vanilla.
Yeah. And so as far as
And
notes
the
go,
texture is the answer, man.
I'll just let you
good.
go, man. Keep going.
No, I'll take another sip, but that is great. And like, here's the thing is like, I always worry. I'm like, all right, Nick's been doing this a while. Maybe he's selling out. No, I'm kidding. But maybe like here's the thing. I'm an artist. And you are, there are times where I can get frustrated with my work so much so that I'm like, I'm just going to put it out. I'm just going to sell it. And I'm not really, really proud of it. And that's who I am sometimes as an artist, not often, but here and there, I'm just so tired of it that I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to put it out. And I love that Found North keeps just getting better. And like this reminds me, I don't know. I mean, like, I remember the first time we had you on was the first time I had Found North, and it was batch 7. And I was like, all right, this is great. But
how can they outdo it?
Better and better. What's that?
But how can they outdo it?
Yeah, exactly. I keep saying that every time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
great nose, great palate. Yeah.
It's just deep, dank, dark. I remember your sentiment about the original Helldiver versus Peregrine, because you had only just recently come out with Peregrine. Yeah. And if Peregrine is the angel, Helldiver is the devil. Like, this is the deep, dark, dank, red fruit basement level whiskey
Yes.
of what's going on here. And this is exactly what I remember when I was nosing the original Helldiver for the first time, where I was super impressed with how musty, funky, but fruit vibey, juicy this could get on the nose. And I sipped it a little too, and on the palate, it's got all the heavy, thick, dusty kind of dank, heavy red berry, musty sweetness. How many synonyms can I say of the same thing? I think you get it.
I totally get it.
Have you ever been lucky enough, Nick, to have Russell's Reserve 15 year came out about a year ago. So what I love about Russell's Reserve 15 is it has a maturity to it that brings this beautiful quality of the oak that makes you feel like maturity is the word. I don't want to say it's like smooth or anything like that. But if you drink like a single barrel, 10-year bourbon from Russell's or Wild Turkey or something like that, and then you try the 15-year, you're like, this has a obvious maturity to it. And that's what I think comparing Helldiver last year to this Helldiver is this has a maturity to it as well that is much more developed in a oaky, but not even close to too oaky way. I don't like it when things are over oaked. I am very sensitive to that personally. But this is like a beautiful vanilla-y oak that is just like, I just tried it next to the last year's Helldiver First Flight. And it's noticeable. It's like the step up from like, 10-year Russells to 15-year Russells.
I shouldn't say this, but I don't think Helldiver First Flight is in the same class as the new one. I thought it was one of the when we made Helldiver First Flight, I thought it was one of the best whiskeys we'd ever made.
Yeah,
and I think 2025 release is substantially better. You're talking about that the maturity. I had that 15-year Russell's Reserve. I did have it probably. I have a good friend who. Really funny how I met him, Jason. He was really getting into whiskey. He's one of those people where he when he gets into something, he really gets into it. Yeah. And he was really getting into whiskey. And I was doing a tasting locally in Watertown, Massachusetts. And it was we had just released Peregrine, the first Peregrine First Flight.
Nice.
And he came in and it was just like, oh, I'm going to come into this there was like a grand whiskey tasting. And it was at Gordon's, which is my old stomping ground. So
nice.
Everybody knew me. I was like home court advantage for me. Right. But everybody was freaking out because we were pouring Peregrine. And so we had one bottle of it. And it was like, when it's gone, 3-hour tasting. And so we were Pappy Van Winkle for a night. You know what I mean? And the people people were freaking out about it. And he just comes around the group and he just comes up to me and he was like, I don't know who you guys are, but people have been saying that I've heard the word Peregrine said 50 times since I've walked in here. Like, what the hell is this? And I was telling him about it, and I said, "This is what it is." And he was like, "Where do you make this?" And I said, "I make it at my dining room table in Weston." And I was kind of being flippant because, obviously we don't make it there, but I designed the blend at home. We designed the blend in our home offices. It's all lab work. And he was like, "Where?" And then I told him where, and it turns out he lived 10 houses away from me.
Oh wow. My gosh, no way.
And he's a total whiskey hound. And we became friends, and he has he has the disposable income, I should say, hunt down whiskeys that I otherwise would not try. Not because I don't think they're worth it, but just because I have too much whiskey. I drink too much whiskey. I don't need to spend a couple $100 finding bottles or
you have a basement full of whiskey.
But whenever he finds something that people are excited about that he gets his hands on, he brings over and we taste together. And obviously Russell's 15 had a lot of excitement around that release.
Totally.
And I remember he came over with it, and I'm a jaded whiskey maker. So I was just like, yeah, okay, bring it over. Let's try it. And I was like, fuck. I was like, oh, wow. I was like, this is amazing. But exactly for the reason you were talking about, there's a presence to it. And I was thinking about, like I'm trying to think about, again, I always feel like the language of whiskey, the language of taste does whiskey a disservice. So I was trying to think of an analogy. And I was actually thinking about there's something about just to swing it back to ballroom dance.
Yeah.
Really, really good ballroom dancers, when they're on a dance floor, they feel like they're taking up like an acre of space. And other dancers don't get near them. The best dancers, it's wild. Like that, you've got 10 couples on a floor. They should all be taking up a tenth of the floor. And one couple just seems to own 50% of the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and you look at it and it's hard to watch. You're watching it and you can't exactly tell why, but you watch one couple and you're like, that couple is doing the same moves, but it's a little better. It's a little bit, whatever it is, there's a presence to how they own the floor. And the other couples just look like kids, twirling around in circles. That's the Russell's 15 was like that, where you're just like, oh, they own the floor. Like, if you taste it, and I did taste it in a line of 5 pretty good bourbons, and it was like, oh, this is the charmer who just sort of is like, yeah. It's nice to see all of you.
Yeah.
Talk now. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel that way. I feel like when and it's really funny because when we'll work with components, and you can actually tell which components have that and which don't at the component level, not at the finished blend. Like literally, like we'll be drinking a component, and I've always tried to describe it as dynamics in music, right?
Yeah.
You can play a note loud, you can play a note staccato, or you can play a note with, you can play a note forte, right? Like you can really, it's the same note, but there's just there's a difference in it. And you can do the same thing where, God, we're gonna milk the dancing analogies.
Do it.
When you dance waltz, what's really cool about dancing waltz is it's 1, 2, 3, right? So you take steps on 1, 2, 3, but you dance in between each step. And really, if you're really good, it actually feels like the 1, 2, 3 bleeds into the 4, 5, 6, right? It's like the movement of it. It's like you're still rising, and then you're going into the flow of the next steps. It almost bleeds. The first steps almost bleed into the next steps. Right?
I love it. Yeah.
Like whiskey can do that, where a flavor can be so resonant that it hits you, and then even as the other flavors are starting to coalesce around it, you actually still are hearing on your mouth the resonance of that original hit.
Right.
And I think like what. We're talking about Peregrine versus Helldiver. Peregrine has a real elegance to it that I think gives it a different type of gravitas and a different type of presence. Helldiver hits in a way that is really, really gripping and really, really captivating. And that's why it's probably my favorite whiskey we make in the portfolio.
Nice.
And it's why going from the first Helldiver, where we got to a result I was happy with, but good Lord, was it a slog to get there. Like we lost half of the casks to them not cooperating in the original blend. We were just working to get the pieces to fit together. As opposed to this Helldiver, where Helldiver First Flight was about getting all of the pieces to fit together. So help me God. Like it wasn't like, hey, how do we fit these pieces together so that they make the best possible whiskey? It was like, how do we fit these pieces together so that they complete the vision of what Helldiver is supposed to be?
Totally.
Yeah.
The second round of this, it was fundamentally different in terms of what we were capable of, the experience that we had from the first one that led us to where the second one was. And then the the core blend was so much better, frankly.
Nice.
Like that was really, like, we can talk about the quality of the wood was better for sure, but the core blend was so much more elevated on Helldiver 2025. And we knew that it needed so much more. I guess the biggest lessons we learned from Peregrine 1 to Peregrine 2 and Helldiver 1 to Helldiver 2, like First Flight to the second editions of these, was we needed a lot more body in the core blend, and that would allow us to be less dependent on new wood to give us that body.
Gotcha.
New wood's a good solution to giving yourself body if you don't have enough of it, but you'd rather not have to, right? Like, you'd rather be able to lean into the sultriness of the Pedro Jimenez casks and not be so dependent on the sandpaper that is new wood. New wood fixes mistakes, right? And it's like, well, don't make those mistakes to begin with.
That's cool.
Right. Now, you mentioned Gordon's earlier. And this comes from a while ago. Might have been just after the last time that we had you on the show. My buddy Lance asked me, "Did you used to work at a Gordon's Liquor near Boston?"
I was the whiskey buyer for Gordon's Liquors.
Nice.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. So, and
that's my first job in the industry.
Nice.
I think he recognized you or something to some extent, but I had to ask. So the Helldiver differential here. Now I'll go ahead and, since Cole has sipped, I'll let you know what my thoughts were on the pre-knit sample. And this was before I looked at the sheet. I swear, I guess you'll have to take my word on it. I thought that it came across a little more dry, spicy on the pre-knit sample. And then on the Helldiver 15 original release, I remember thinking at the time that it was the juiciest, jammiest whiskey you've ever come out with. But now I believe that the 17-year Helldiver, the new one, just is beyond juicy jammy.
It's so much juicier.
It
I know.
continues the juicy jammy. That, like, what it kind of showed me was your original 15-year Helldiver, the first flight. It tastes more along the lines of the creamy corn component. It's got more of that, I guess, vanilla, I'll say. I'm kind of like generalizing by just saying vanilla. Whereas the 17-year, the new Helldiver that the lottery just went out for, has so much more red berry that it draws me more way towards the red berry side than even the original Helldiver.
Okay, I love that, and I was just re-sipping the Helldiver First Flight, and what I think is really interesting about First Flight is, and I'll describe this, and then you guys try it and you see if you catch my drift on this. I feel like the Helldiver First Flight is a bit of a relay race. The first runner is all of the juicy, fruity quality, and the second runner is all of the heavy, dry spice. And you know how when you watch a relay race, there's that like 2-second period where they're running together. Right, they're running together, and then the other guy takes the baton, and the other guy sort of fades off. That's Helldiver First Flight. The juicy guy hands it off to the spice. They run together for a second, so it's not disjointed, right? There is like this integration where there's the handoff, and then the juice really fades, and you really dip and dive into the dark cellars of dry spice, heavy baking spice, which I love about Helldiver First Flight, and getting it to just tell that story was incredible. Where it was integrated like that, where there was a handoff, was fucking hard enough. But that's Helldiver First Flight. Now give it a try and tell me if you see what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I just sipped it. It is it's a weird transition. Like it's like
it's not a perfect transition.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's funny when Brian, you're talking about the pre-knit, the before it was finished knitting together, and you were like, yeah, it's drier and spicier. When we made it, I was freaking out because I was like, this is as good as it can get. And actually the bottling of it was way better than the original vatting, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes it goes in the wrong direction. And Cole, I don't think it was one of those things where it was like, we just need to get our artwork out. It was one of those things where it was like, we've done every possible thing we can do in this reblend to get. We've tasted 9 million iterations of this. And this is our best shot at making this whiskey as well as we can make it.
That's awesome.
And that was first flight. Now coming to the 2015. The integration is so much better that you don't even see the handoff. They're completely harmonious in a way where
it's a crescendo.
It's a crescendo, and I actually feel like the fruit hits right on the landing and builds, and then just lasts into the finish. And the spice comes up in the middle and then comes down. And what I love about that is, as a result, you get this effect where it's like the fruit hits and then the spice builds into it to give it this lovely harmony.
Yeah.
But then the spice fades and the fruit and the vanilla and the creaminess end up being the finish. And my pet peeve in whiskey, and a guy at Gordon's almost fought me on this once. I'm not kidding. I did a Found North tasting where I thought a guy was going to fight me about something I said about my own whiskey.
Oh, wow.
Which was hilarious because I told him that batch 6, when we made batch 7, a lot of what we were doing was correcting what we felt like went wrong in batch 6. We vatted batch 6, and the vatting didn't go exactly the way we wanted it. And the finish went from being what I thought was perfect to being a little bit hot on the back end. And I felt like you could taste the proof on the back end. And one of the, I'm not going to say mistakes, but one of the things that I think happens in the whiskey world, especially amongst consumers, is we're so hell-bent on like latching on to something that we can taste, right? Taste, again, it's so hard that as a consumer, you want to get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to get it. And as a result, I think a lot of times whiskeys that are really high strength get a pass for having a hot finish because people mistake that for like the Kentucky Hug or like the warm. They're like, oh, well, it's so much warmth, and it's like, no, it doesn't. That's not a finish. That's just booze.
That's just
right?
that's
like,
just heat. Yeah,
that's just heat. It's not finish. That's not flavor. It's literally just heat.
Yeah.
And it most often gets conflated with spicy finish. So baking spice and heat are actually close together.
Yeah.
So I get why that mistake happens all the time. Where it's like, someone will be like, oh, it's got a great big heavy baking spice finish. With batch 6, it had a big heavy baking spice finish, and it didn't have heat on the finish. And then when we did the final vatting, there was this heat on the finish that emerged after the vatting, and it kind of nuked the spice. And I was pissed because I felt like I had a perfect whiskey, and then after the vatting, it just didn't turn out the way it wanted to.
Yeah.
I said that at a tasting, and a guy who thinks batch 6 is the best whiskey of all time was literally like, "You're wrong about it." And I was like, I'm not wrong.
I don't know who you are, but you're wrong. We went
back and forth. He was like, and literally the host of the tasting was like, he got so heated with me that the owner of the store went up to him and was like, "Hey, you need to chill or I'm kicking you out." And I was like, "No, it's totally fine." But I feel like what's amazing about what's amazing about the finish of
Mhm.
2025,
Yeah.
and I don't think you get it in First Flight, and I think you really get it in the 2025 edition, is because the spice actually kind of dies down on
Yeah.
the back end. It emerges in the third and even starting into the fourth quadrant of the whiskey.
Yeah.
Then it kind of comes down, and actually the fruit and the cream keep crescendoing, where the
Mhm.
finish ends up being extraordinarily long and
Yeah.
intense and rich without being even minutely hot. There isn't
Yeah.
you
Good point.
can't even conflate hot. This thing doesn't ever get hot. It literally just resonates.
Ooh, nice honey
So
on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, if you want to sum it up, Cole.
No, yeah. No, I agree.
The,
Go ahead.
the biggest differentiator to me between original Helldiver and this new 17 year is dryness. I feel like the 17 year dries out around 3 to 4 throughout the sip, whereas the 17 year maintains a juicy, rich fruit throughout at least 7 to 8. At least 7 to 8.
I'm every time I taste this, I feel the dry spice come up, and I feel it come down, and yet I'm still tasting the overtones of the juicy fruit. Like, as I'm talking right now, I'm literally getting the resolve of sticky fruit without the heat. It's
Totally. Now, I don't have the bottle in my hands of this new 17 year. Is there a manager's proof on this guy? Manager as in a Nick Taylor proof on this guy.
I did that lovely thing where I took a swallow right as I was about to say something.
Yeah,
It's amazing how not hot this whiskey is that I just inhaled it into my
Yeah.
lungs and it's not burning me.
Right. Can you give us some lungs notes?
Some
Yeah.
lungs notes.
How do your lungs feel?
How do my lungs taste then? No, we didn't do a manager's proof on this, and honestly, I tried it at a lot of different proofs. I enjoy this whiskey. I enjoy this whiskey with a drop of water in it, for sure. But I don't necessarily think it actually makes it better, which is unusual. I think
I
water
agree.
almost always makes whiskey better. There's almost no cask strength. I would say 98% of cask strength whiskeys that I drink improve with water. Um, Now, to be fair, the ABV on this is a little bit lower than what we usually
Mhm.
release. It's
Yeah.
56.2 instead of 59.5 for the Helldiver First Flight. So it's slightly lower proof, and so I think it doesn't get the natural benefit of watering down whiskey, which is that watering down whiskey tends to mellow it out a hair.
Mhm.
This whiskey doesn't need to be mellowed out.
I
A
agree.
lot of times when you're adding water, what you're really doing is cutting some of the heat off of the back end of this. Because it doesn't have heat on the back end of it, it doesn't gain from that. The other thing that water tends to do, in my opinion, is open up the fruit notes. And again, I don't think you benefit from it
Yeah.
in this whiskey. It doesn't. I just added water again, um, and so we thought about adding a manager's proof largely because we typically don't with high altitude collection put a manager's
Mhm.
proof. I don't think that we've put them in our notes ever, but we got so many requests to do so for this whiskey that I
Wow.
that I that I actually went through the process of testing it out and trying it in a bunch of
Mhm.
different proofs, and I was just like, sorry, ladies and gents. I think I just
Mhm.
like it better at strength.
Nice.
I find that the water and ice add that PX raisin note, which I don't think is too complimentary. It's not bad. I can still drink
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I know
But
what
I
you mean.
think it doesn't complement it as much as the neat pour. Yeah.
The dryness. I totally
I
Yeah.
think
agree.
I've said this on this podcast at least twice, but more than any um, my number one quote unquote guilty pleasure
Mm-hmm.
in the world is putting ice in expensive whiskey.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, I'm doing that right now. You gotta try it. You have to know.
One of my friends we were celebrating the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a couple weeks ago. We were celebrating. He had a big sort of personal thing in his life
Nice.
go the right way.
Totally.
And he's one of those wonderful friends who has like muscled his way through enjoying whiskey simply because he's a friend of mine and doesn't actually like whiskey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like, I'm like, let's celebrate, let's drink something. So I pulled out a 2014 Stag Antique Collection.
Mm.
And we drank
Nice.
that fucker on the rocks.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
You
I'm,
gotta
just
do
like,
it.
I'm not gonna pour this for you, and like you're gonna hate it, neat. It's 140 proof. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be miserable. It's a great whiskey, but we poured 2 ounces each, and I you know I used a nice healthy big fat stone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was incredible on the rocks.
Nice.
Like just incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wouldn't write my tasting notes for it that way, but it was just
So
That's great.
yeah, that's one of the 2 hazmat stag years, correct?
No, that's a 138-1.
Oh,
I actually
the
have that bottle,
114?
but I never drank it.
I think the 114 is a 139.8.
2014?
Yeah.
I'm seeing a 138-1.
1914.
Yeah. Interesting. Really? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I have the.
Wait,
maybe
what
I-
was the
I
one you
misremembered.
thought though?
Sorry to call you out on it.
I thought it
what
was
was the-
one. I thought it was 139.8.
I'll look up
Or is it
139.8.
144? I used to know the
Sorry,
stags
I
pretty
got
well.
all
I don't remember them
pedantic
anymore.
on this here.
That's all right.
I'm not seeing a 139.8.
What? Read me the 20. You know what? No. We're not going to do this on a podcast.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? Nick, have you tried Helldiver the 17 year with ice?
I have not. Should I?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Why
Dude,
not?
be the first. Let us be
You
the
guys-
first to introduce for the record. It's not better.
Can we pause for a second? I gotta run all the way upstairs.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right,
Sure,
I'll put this
do
down. I'll
it.
be back in 1 minute.
I
I'm
know.
gonna grab
Yeah,
you guys.
me and Brian will talk about you while you're gone.
Yeah,
you're
talk
good,
about me.
you're
Talk
good.
about how full of shit I am. Yeah, this
Oh,
guy
yeah.
talking about
Okay.
dancing with.
All right,
How about
go.
that
Take
Nick
him off.
guy?
Hey, Nick guy.
Take
Why
him
do we
off.
have him on? We have to tell him that we like
Why don't you
him.
waltz
Like,
on out of here, Nick
why don't you
Taylor?
off.
waltz on
Take
out
him
of
off.
here.
Take him off, Nick. Okay, all right.
I'm gonna listen
Here we
later.
go. Oh man, this Nick Taylor guy, dude. Let me
Did you
tell
see
you.
that guy's good looks?
I know,
And
right?
his
Oh,
really
man.
niceness.
Somehow he even knew to wear a green shirt. Can you
I
believe
know,
it?
it was Green
Like,
Shirt
we were-
Day, and he knew.
It's Green
Yeah.
Shirt Day, June 26th, and somehow he knew to wear a green shirt today.
Did he just leave the rum?
the rum? They're blending rum.
They're blending rum at Found North.
All right,
That's great.
but while he's gone, he can't hear us. Cole, have you had ice yet?
Yeah, it's more raisiny, and it's not better.
It's more raisiny, and to me, it's all about the one to two and the timeline to 10
Yeah,
sip.
there's not much
God,
else.
Yeah, hopefully his PC didn't transition to speakers so he can hear me, but like it's all about the 1 to 2 in the timeline to 10 sip. Like it's got it boom, it hits you with rich oaky raisins from 1 to 2, but then it just like dies immediately after that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he says.
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. And there are worse, way worse whiskeys, but this is the least of the pours to me. The
Totally
neat
agree.
water ice is
Stag proofs. Did you pull up?
Yeah,
a
there's
list
no
of stag proofs?
139.8s.
God, this guy is he
There's
he
a
a
138.
total
No,
imposter?
yeah, there's a 138.7. There's not even a single 139.
So I can't wait to ask him what else does he have in his stash in his basement? If he has stags
he has a
from 130
stag, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You should grab that too.
Yeah,
Share it telephonically.
Yeah, we should get a podcast review of a 2015 stag.
Oh yeah. Dude, 2016 though? Have you ever had that one?
Is 2016 the one that's hazmat? There's two hazmat stags.
Yeah. There's a few. There's 20. Yeah, there's a good few. In fact, from 2005 to 2012, they were all hazmat.
No.
And then 2013 and through 2015 were sub hazmat. 2016 was the one that I had. It was a 144.1. And then it hasn't been hazmat since then in 2014 or 2016.
Are you telling me there were 5 GTS hazmat years in a row?
There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. 2005 fall through 2012 were all hazmat. The highest being 143.0. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2007 was a 144.8, the highest ever.
Oh, dang, dude.
Yeah.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. I had no idea.
So, yeah, what is it?
It's 138.1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
2014. That's what you said, though, right?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah. I had the ABV wrong. I had it wrong.
Did you have your headphones on the whole time?
No.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, good. Because we talked mad shit about you. You'll have to read about that later.
So many bad things. So many bad things.
That's what I like to hear.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, it turns out the whole point of the Chill Filtered podcast is to talk mad shit about their interviewees.
How'd you know? Yeah. Since I started this whole thing, many, many moons ago, I was like, this is the purpose. Yeah.
Top secret.
Especially when our guests are on episode. Yeah.
It's good on the rocks, but it's not better on ice. This thing, Hell Never 2025 is not one that I would guilty pleasure drink on the rocks.
Totally fair. Totally fine. Give us a full review on ice. Give me the timeline of the sip. 1 through 10. What do you get?
I'd love to hear that.
Moment of silence.
Yeah.
So what I do enjoy about it, and the fun thing about ice is that it changes constantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just getting colder and more dilute as you're sitting there.
Wait, you're telling me there's more whiskey in that ice pour?
Yes.
That's one of the jokes we have on our podcast is like, not only is it colder, there's more whiskey now.
Whiskey.
Yeah, go on.
So what I like about it, 4 seconds after I've put the ice cube in, or whatever the hell however you want to describe it, is it pulls out like a in the first quadrant, you land with a little less of the sticky fruit and a little bit more of like the crystallized vanilla ice cream, right? Like you really get the vanilla. It's almost muting the fruit top notes. They come back in the second and third quadrant. The spice never really kicks in. You just get like a dusting of baking spice, but like the heavy spice fruit balance never really kicks in. Instead, it almost like shifts the whole chord up an octave. You're suddenly getting, instead of getting spice and fruit, you get more of like a fruit and creamy blend, which isn't bad. It isn't bad per se. It's actually quite good. It's just, honestly, I might prefer this on the rocks blind. If I didn't know it was Helldiver, and so I didn't have expectations that it was supposed to be a certain way, and I just tasted it blind, I might be like, oh, wow, this is a really cool, like, fruit forward but creamy bright whiskey. You know what I mean? I wouldn't sit there being like, really oh, this is tasty. I would feel like this is like a meaty, heavy, I think about the tasting note. I will tell you guys shamelessly that the Helldiver First Flight tasting notes are my favorite notes I've ever written.
Nice. I heard herbaceous somewhere in there.
The tasting notes these tasting notes that I just wrote were really fun for Helldiver 2025. But First Flight, my favorite line of the whole thing is, if your palate had eyes, it would see claret. It's just there's just this idea of just this red tint that is just encompassing the whole whiskey. You know, like if you could taste a color, it would be this blood red when you drink fucking Helldiver, right?
Yeah.
When you put this on the rocks, you know, if your palate had eyes, it would see kind of like a muddled pink. You know, it's like it doesn't. You like really
a white grape.
You like really lose the heavy red fruit quality of the whole whiskey, which could be really delicious outside of the context of Helldiver. But as I have, one of my favorite things to say about whiskey is that context matters. I love blind tasting because I think it's very informing. Like I think it really like helps you understand the whiskey outside of the context. But I don't actually think you should drink whiskey outside of the context. Like I think you should know what you're drinking. I think who you're drinking the whiskey with matters. I think the whiskey within the context of other whiskeys matter. Like Helldiver 2025 is a better whiskey within the context of Helldiver First Flight. If you didn't drink First Flight and you just had Helldiver 2025, I think it's a great whiskey. But when you have it in the context of the growth and the journey that is Found North, and that is Helldiver First Flight into this remake of it, this different version of it, the different version of it, that context of the first whiskey really gives it a lot more intrigue. And I think it makes it literally more enjoyable from a taste perspective. Not just from like what I think about this intellectually, but how I enjoy this whiskey. Like you guys listening to you talk about the whiskey in the context of tasting First Flight right next to it is literally why I make whiskey.
Nice.
It's the core of what whiskey means to me is the journey of the experience. It's why going and figuring out what the Stag 2014 ABV was actually is interesting to me, right? It's like, oh, right. Which one was that? What is the context of that whiskey?
So if you've got a Stag 2014 just chilling in your basement, like what else do you have down there? Now, actually,
16 down there.
Side question, simultaneous question. You had a Gordon MacPhail from like the 1950s or something for your brother's wedding. Like, have you tapped into that? And also, what else do you have in your basement?
Oh man, I have the fun things I have in my basement right now, off the top of my head. I have a Glenbergie 1966 vintage 46-year-old that I've been sitting on for Zach's either wedding or first child.
That's great.
And neither,
whichever comes first.
And I'm like, I might just drink it for my second kid and just be like, screw it.
Uncle status.
Announcement right here. Announcement.
No. Like,
make it happen, Captain.
No, there are other potentially worthy excuses to open that bottle of whiskey, which I had a taste of this whiskey, which is why I bought it over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So revisiting it would be a incredible blast from the past. I have a 1984 Booker's that is just sitting there.
That's like one of the first Bookers.
I know, which is pretty cool. I've got that sitting on my shelf.
That's before they started doing like legit years and stuff. They have pretty cool labeling on those ones.
I have an 89. I have an 89 and an 87 Stitzel Weller,
Nice.
Weller Antique, very, very old.
Nice. Yeah.
Very cool.
A couple gold foil, like a couple of the gold.
Cheesy golds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those are in my basement. Some of my personal favorite bottles that I have in my basement that have no meaning to other people. I have one 18.8 Whistle Pig, which is the first single barrel, one of the first single barrels I ever picked as a whiskey buyer.
That's
was a
cool.
Whistle Pig.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure it's a 14-year-old. It's a 10-year age status.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's 14-year-old ADL.
Was it one of those old worlds, or was that before that?
No, predates the old world. It's actually the original packaging of Whistle Pig. Most people don't even know that they've changed their packaging. And
when you were buying that, did you get to meet Dave Pickerel?
I've met Pickerel in a couple other contexts, but I didn't actually meet him at Whistle Pig. I met him at Whiskey Fest. I met him when he started Hill Rock, or Hill Rock.
Widow Jane?
No, Hill Rock.
Oh yeah, Hill Rock,
yeah. He did Hill Rock. Yeah, no,
That's cool.
That was a cool trip. And then I have an OESK Four Roses single barrel, which was Brent Elliott's first pick ever as master distiller, which was cool. That I picked with him.
We know you love Four Roses. Yeah,
I love Four Roses.
Oh my goodness!
I think I will downright say that Brent Elliott is the most underappreciated distiller in the industry right now.
That's so cool.
I think he is a blending god.
That's great.
And most people don't appreciate that.
That's a good point, because they're big at blending.
Yeah, and Four Roses is upfront about it, but I've talked to other distillers. I have talked to master distillers at the biggest distilleries in Kentucky, and I've asked the same question year in and year out. I ask the same question: how many days are you in the still house a year?
Yeah.
And the answer is usually less than 3.
Wow.
So these,
it's all about the blending.
Master distillers,
their
whole job is blending.
Yeah.
It's quality control and blending.
Wow.
Right. So, I think some of these folks are incredibly underappreciated.
And OESK is one of the rarest of ones too. So that's pretty cool.
Is it rare now?
That's what I hear.
Interesting. I hunt them out when I go to. It's one of the only things I'll buy these days. Is if I go into a liquor store and they have a single barrel of Four Roses, I check the recipe. Yeah. If it's OESK, I buy it.
That's cool.
But yeah, I have his barrel one. I was at Gordon's at the time. We have the barrel head. We had the barrel head at Gordon's.
That's cool.
And it's signed by the owner of Gordon's, and Brent Elliott, and it says barrel number 1 on it, which is pretty cool.
Go and steal that.
So I have that, and I have it open, and it is a banger.
I love it.
And then the other thing I have in my basement that I absolutely adore is actually Rosebank 21 year. That's a deep cut.
Sounds like a deep cut.
Rosebank is one of the best Scotch distilleries that nobody's ever heard of. It went defunct when all of the distillers were going defunct in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Same year, went defunct the same year that Stitzel Weller closed, I believe. And Diageo released an OB 21 year in 1990, 1992. That was a vintage 1990, a vintage 1992.
Wow.
And did they do a vintage 1994? I can't remember. I have 2 different ones in my basement that are fabulous. Cool. I think those are probably the coolest things that I've got. That's
legit.
I do a really cool charity event every year for. There's a really cool guy who lives in Boston, who is one of the sort of best collectors, has one of the best private collections of bourbon, I would argue, in the country. And he raises money for financial aid for students at his kid's school. And the way we do it is he sells the tickets for the event for an astronomical amount of money.
Uh-huh.
And I go into his collection, pick out 8 to 10 bottles, and I just start pouring them and talking about them because I'm a
That's
total
cool.
whiskey historian. And we do it on his roof deck in Boston.
Oh my gosh!
And
so you get to be like the bartender there, basically.
Yeah, I do it for free.
Great.
And we pour like the worst thing we pour is like 25-year-old Yamazaki. You know what I mean? Like the worst thing we pour is like a multi-$1,000 bottle that nobody can get their hands on. And he knows my palate, and he generally at the after I do it for free, but he tends to drive over to my house afterwards and drops off a bottle as a thank you. And it's the bottles are just ridiculous. It's usually how I get my good stuff. That's how I got that 2014. He knows I love that 2014 stack. That's actually a gift from him for doing the event a couple years ago.
That's cool.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Okay, well, invite us next time you're doing one of those.
Yeah, we'll be bartenders, so we don't have to pay.
Right. Yeah.
So I got to tell you, the ice is melted in this, and I'm tasting it now. I think there's like a real dusting of the herbaceous quality in this whiskey. I think we did a really good job of like that herbaceous note can get cloying really fast. You have to be, when you're blending it into a whiskey, you have to be super careful. It's why blending, it's why rye is so difficult to make, right? Because it's like the things you like about rye constantly come with this herbaceous quality.
Yeah.
I am tasting the hell out of it now. The fruit is totally muted. The spice is gone. The vanilla is sort of blended in with just like the coldness of the whiskey. And the herbaceous quality is starting to like pop off. And I feel like Sammy would love this. A little bartender Negroni, like you know, like a little bitter herbaceous quality.
Totally.
But I really enjoy it. But I recognize that not very many people would be digging what ice is doing to this whiskey.
Yeah. So along that line now, I'm gonna quote a certain Found North employee named Nick Taylor, who said one of the Helldiver casks was god awful for the original release years ago. So I gotta know if this even sticks out in your mind. Do you even know what I'm talking about? And did it turn? Like, what's the story with a god awful Helldiver cask?
Yeah. Tell us about that cask.
God awful Helldiver cask and the other reject casks are being experimented on like lab rats in our warehouse.
Torturously.
That's what you talked about earlier. Yeah.
They're just, and they've never done good things. They took a you know, this is not one of those. This is not one of those reclamation stories where it's like, like started off good and then
redeemed itself.
You know, the teenager goes in a bad way and then, you know, has this, you know, come to Jesus moment and is reformed. No, these things are like these Helldiver casks are dealing drugs behind the corner store right now. Like they just never. They never figured it out. No, those whiskeys went haywire.
Those are the ones you sold off. Those are the ones.
They're bad.
So
speaking of which, I think we lost money on the first Helldiver.
Oh really?
Wow.
Because of all the bad barrels, basically.
Whiskey. Yeah. We rejected so many whiskey from that. From that, I do not believe Helldiver made any money the first time.
That there was something, I can't remember what the exact verbiage was, but it was that the PX Sherry casks were very versatile in how they presented themselves after a couple number of years. And so it seemed like only a half were good and half were not good. Is that what you mean?
Versatile is like the euphemism of the night. They were disparate is the word that I've used in the past. Yeah, they went all over the place. I think it's a funny thing. It's actually really interesting because the difference between disparate and versatile is a really good way to understand the reblending process. So what was very successful with Helldiver 2025 in comparison to Helldiver First Flight was actually the Helldiver 2025. The barrels were less disparate. They were closer together in profile, and part of that had to do with the core blend. The core blend was better situated to handle the barrels we were using, but a huge part of that was just the quality of wood we were buying. When we bought the Helldiver casks, we were a infant company. Like we were buying casks let me put it this way. Those casks traveled from the broker to the warehouse where they were filled on a flatbed that was hitched to a truck,
nice,
strapped with like, you know what I mean? It's just those things, those barrels, those barrels were not. It was like, wow, hey, I've got 4 barrels of sherry cask from 4 different places, and you're like, oh, I'll take those, and then, all right, I got 6 barrels from here, from this, and it's like, good 2 from here, and 2 from there, and 2 from this. That was how we made Helldiver First Flight.
That's funny.
Helldiver 2025 was high quality sherry cask bought from the best French cooperage in Europe.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about that is you would think, well, with Helldiver First Flight, you had such a variety of flavor that you were given a lot of flexibility. It's not the way it works, because I wish the language was easier for this. Because the barrels were a little bit more conformist, not a little bit, were substantially more uniform with this run, it gave us the flexibility to use some of this and less of that in a way where we could basically gear the whiskey more towards fruit and less towards spice if we wanted to, without losing the whole structure of the whiskey. When we made First Flight, the barrels were so all over the place, where each barrel had something that was amazing about it and something that was horrific about it. And so getting them to fit together wasn't about, hey, what do we want to do with this whiskey artistically? It was, how do we get this house that we're trying to build to stand up and not immediately fall over? Like, how do we just get the structure of this whiskey such that it doesn't taste like someone invented, it doesn't taste like Harry Potter, every flavored jelly beans all thrown into one, you know what I mean? Like, how do we get these flavors to coalesce in a way that is just reasonable? Like, it wasn't a creative thing. It was how do we fix all of the things that are wrong about all of these whiskeys while bringing out all of the best aspect of these barrels? That was how we made the first Helldiver. This Helldiver, it was like, wow, do we want to lean? We could use these casks and lean a little bit more into the fruit, and then we can get this lovely arc of the spice profile, right? It was like so much greater flexibility because there was less disparity. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you were trying to get pieces that don't fit together at all to fit together, there's only a handful of ways to do it in a way that makes sense. Whereas pieces that are conforming with each other, you actually have flexibility to shape it in a way that maximizes the story and tells the best story. And the quality was way higher to begin with, right? Like, the threshold of quality with the barrels we were using was so high that the quality of individual casks was so high and so much less flawed that the reblend was much more about what do we want this whiskey to be, as opposed to how do we make this whiskey work.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you the difference that I'm seeing, because I've made a ridiculous spreadsheet between the first Helldiver and the second Helldiver, is it very clearly looks like you did not reuse the same casks or reuse the same source of casks that you used for the first Helldiver with the second Helldiver, in that you announced the first Helldiver in April of 24. You announced the second Helldiver in June of 25. But if you look at the years and the components that you listed for each blend, there's more than 1 year between the youngest corn component, and there's actually 3 or 4 years between the youngest rye component. That these are clearly different components that you've blended and recasked to achieve the juicy jammy that you want to be the epitome of Helldiver.
Brian, are you looking for a job? Like, what's going on here? Are you pitching me on?
Hold on, my boss listens to this. Hold on.
No, it's really interesting because we aged the secondary maturation of Helldiver First Flight was much longer than the 2025 version. And again, part of that was when we made the original core blend, we had really high expectations for what the new wood components would do from a body standpoint. And then we had to really wait for it to make that progress. That progress was slow. Whereas with 2025 Helldiver, we made a core blend that had substantially more body. We were able to use less new wood, and as a result, it was ready faster. So it's tricky to look at the years and know like exactly what. I can't even remember exactly what components. Actually, if we want to do this for funsies,
we do.
Nice.
We do.
I can just go. I'm gonna go to I'm in right now. You guys can't see this, and I will not share my screen.
Hold on. Can you share your screen? Hold on.
No.
I can't see your screen right now. Can you share your screen?
No, I will. I am in our blend master file, which shows every single component that's been
oh my gosh
ever
If
used.
only.
Hold on. I need to go change my pants. Hold on.
1, 2. There were 2 components. They're kind of related. There are 2 components that are from the same original lot in 2020. In 2025 that were in Helldiver First Flight, having aged longer. And what's tricky about that is like the year. Here's one factor. Ready? Let's say I use a component that was distilled in January of 2000. We'll just make up a component. I used for a blend something that was in January of 2000, right? And then I bottle it in, and then I recask it in December of 2024. So it's not quite 25 years. And then I further mature it for 3 months, and then I end up using it and I end up bottling it in February of 2025. That thing's a 25 year, right? Yeah, we're sure. Well,
I don't know how the rules work, but I would imagine so.
How long was it in tote between 20, right? Like how long was it in tote?
Fair.
Yeah.
Before we put it in the finishing cask?
That's a good point.
So if it's in tote for 2.5 months, then actually it's still a 24 year, even though it's been 25 years and 2 months. And we have to calculate all of this. By the way, like we are doing a lot of our finishing in the US using components that have been shipped from Canada. So they ship, they get vatted, they sit in the vat for a month, they go into tote, the casks show up, cask, it takes another month for that, and then they go into barrel. I have to do that with every single freaking component. I have to calculate the exact month so I get the year right on the back of the bottle. So when you look at these things and you go, oh, well, this has a 2-year gap. Is that 2-year gap because it sat in tote for 6 months? Or is that 2-year gap because it's a year and 2 months older, but I couldn't put the age statement? We have released 3 whiskeys that are, the youngest component was 2 weeks away from being a year older. Not that I'm in the business of making whiskey or anything.
You gotta make it good.
But I can sell a 19-year for like $5 to $10 more per bottle than an 18-year. And that's on the that's the bottom line. You talk about like $8. We had I don't know if you read our emails, but we didn't know that the price of shipping had gone up $5.
Oh, rough.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this in our email.
I
We
did,
didn't know
yeah.
that the pricing and shipping had gone up $5, and we had a meeting about this like fucking 3 hours before we sent the email, and we were like, the all-in cost of this is going to be $5 higher than we expected, and 99 out of 100 companies would just go, we can't control shipping. Screw the customer. We're doing this.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting about it. We were like, no, we're going to lower the price.
Wow.
We've already sold this thing at wholesale. Do you know how much money that we lost? Like $5 across the number of bottles we made. But it's
I did that. I did that math.
Revenue. Yeah,
I did that math.
Revenue.
It was $30,000 something.
Yeah, but it's all bottom line. We're not talking about revenue. We're not talking about $30,000 and $10,000 of that is profit. We're talking all bottom line. And nobody even notices, but we do it anyway because it's like,
that's cool.
Anyway, it's because I think like we care a lot about how we treat the whiskey community. I think there are too many brands and too many distilleries that just assume people are going to buy their shit, you know?
Yeah,
and it's like,
totally.
And it's like, oh, what's $5? And it's like, you know what? Actually, people care a lot about the shipping changing. And they should. It's bullshit, you know? Like, if you don't tell them that you're going to change the price, like, you can't just change the price. But that same thing has happened with us for age statements, where it's like, God, we could sell this for 170 and 165 if we waited 2 weeks. But it's perfect right now, so we're just bottling this and eating the cost. We do that. We're just a stupid company that doesn't want to make money. We do this so often. It just kills me. Actually, it kills Zach more than it kills me.
I'm sure it does. He's the one that it would kill. Yeah, right.
He's the one because he's responsible for making all of our finances work.
Yeah,
Zach, can I talk about Zach?
Please.
You want like, it's a funny thing because we're in hour 2.5 of this, so so let's just keep rolling. And we talked a little bit. We were going to talk a little bit about personal stuff, and like talking about my daughter is personal and it means a lot to me. And I really care about that. But honestly, like, talking about my brother and talking about working with my brother is the thing that I don't get to talk about a lot, and is probably one of the most important things to me. Like, most people don't work with their siblings, and people who do often talk to me and are like, how do you work with your sibling? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you manage this? And like, my brother is my idol.
Nice.
I love him to death. He's my best friend. He's the person that I worship on this planet. And he's freakishly talented as a human being and as a business person. And he gets literally zero credit for Found North. Like, like I get to be the face of Found North, and I talk about Sammy relatively often. I probably should talk about him more because he's so bloody talented. And I talk about Chris, and he's so damn talented. I even talk about Phil, and like,
Yeah.
not to. Sorry, Phil, if you're listening to this, like I don't mean it like I even talked about Phil, but
Yeah.
like Phil is not the co-founder of Found North. Phil is, but Phil helps with the blends, and like Phil does a million things that I talk about, and like these people are all incredibly key to the business, and they all get their due, and nobody ever talks about what Zach does.
Yeah.
And beyond the fact that I love him to death, and he taught me how to be a human being, let alone be an entrepreneur and be somebody who runs a company with him. But like one of the hardest parts of making a whiskey is making a whiskey that people can afford. And I know that sounds like it's like, oh, okay, we're getting into the business of this. But finding liquid to source and sourcing it in a way that's financially like manageable is like searching for a needle in a haystack. There's a reason why we existed as a company for 5 years before we even launched a single product of our own. We were searching for years for good whiskey or good liquid, frankly, because we looked outside of whiskey that we could turn into a meaningful product that people would enjoy. And part of enjoyment is like, look, if you give me an unlimited budget and you said to me, you can buy whatever you want and you can charge whatever you want, and that doesn't matter, I could make like a $12,000 bottle of whiskey that might be better than what we make, but honestly, I don't know that it would be much better. And that's actually a testament to how gifted Zach is at finding and sourcing and negotiating all our deals. And he does literally all of that without getting a single modicum of credit, beyond the fact that like he designed our lottery system. He designed, like, he is solely responsible for how we market and sell our whiskey, what our mailing list looks like, what all of these, how all of these things work, all the cadence of all of our like everything that gives Found North structure has its DNA deeply rooted in my brother's blood.
That's pretty cool.
And he gets zero credit for it. So this is my 3-minute soliloquy about how important he is to the brand, and that if he wasn't running this company as our CEO, there would be no Found North at all. Cool. Nor would there be the name Found North. He named Found North. Found North. There's nothing without Zach.
Yeah.
That's
well,
awesome.
I'm hearing Mr. Value. I'm hearing he is the value man. He's finding the right casks. He's pricing it appropriately.
No one could afford Found North. Yeah, you and I would be on this, and you'd be like, "Yeah, this Helldiver 2025 you made, Nick, is pretty good, but I don't know that it's worth the $2,500 you're charging for it."
Right. Which begs the question then of original first flights, Found North, Helldiver, Peregrine, any other first flights that are maybe coming up anytime soon?
Duck.
That's none of your fucking business. No,
none of your ducking.
None of your ducking business. We are coming out with the Found North Mallard next week. God,
dude.
No. There will be first flights in our future. When that is, I will not say.
That's what I was curious. I was curious if you were done with the first flights and you were in your riffing phase, or if you were still pumping out first flights.
No, I mean, I think particularly with like, to me, it's interesting because we've had this conversation about like, will we make a Peregrine every year? No.
Okay, when it's ready.
When it's ready. Will we make a Helldiver every year? Probably not, but I probably want to every year.
Sentimental.
But
Yeah.
Like to me, putting Helldiver down would just be a disaster. Like just a personal disaster. Like I think about it, I dream about Helldiver. And part of it is because Helldiver is so much harder to make. Honestly, like I don't, people dream about Everest. I dream about K2. It's
Nice.
like it's just such a delightful challenge to make Helldiver, and I think it creates so much counterpoint for the Found North brand. Like it's such a fundamental root of the Found North brand. That being said, like it's too damn exciting to keep making new stuff.
Totally. New experiments, yeah.
And if you aren't releasing new albums, like what are you doing? So for me, I just feel like we will constantly, and the high altitude collection isn't just about the birds we've made and the pillars we've established. It's about the process. The process.
Yeah,
I like. Maybe we don't do a good enough job about this, and maybe that's because we spend $0 on marketing. Literally.
But you give little cool samples, that's for sure.
But we send out cool samples. No, but we do such a shitty job. Like we should be in magazines and we should be doing it, but we don't do it because we're too busy working on whiskey. We're like, there's got to be. I mean, Brian, you've got to come up with an artist, a musical artist who like should be more famous than they are, but they're too busy like tinkering.
Dude,
that's who I aspire to be.
Musical artist tinkering to me is Trent Reznor. Like he's come around. He's done so many different things.
Yeah.
As the decades have progressed, he has produced different music over decades.
Oscars.
Trent Reznor is the man who continues to evolve as the decades go by for me.
That's good. I know what I'm going to be listening to on Spotify tomorrow. When I drive down to the Cape.
Dude.
But I think like for us, I just there's a blend here. There's a blend of like when you find something good, iterate off of it. Like Found North is the iterative process of Helldiver led us to 2025, which is unequivocally a better whiskey. I hate saying this because people will disagree with me. And people will disagree with me because they like the first of things. But batch 2 is better than batch 1. Like batch 4 was better than batch 2. I don't know what to tell you guys, like we get better at making the whiskeys because we work on them and we have experience and the whiskeys get better. Things aren't just better because they're the original all the time. So on one hand, like I will just push for us to continue to make, new vintages or new release years or whatever you want to call it of Helldiver. That's not going to stop. We are going to make more Peregrines. That's not going to stop. We will make more Hoverhawks. That's not going to stop. But that doesn't mean we have to do it every year, one. And two, the high altitude collection process is much more of a defining characteristic of Found North than the individual whiskeys within it. Yeah. Nobody is doing this. Like nobody is making whiskey this way in a meaningful way. If anybody is doing it, I don't know who they are. And they aren't releasing whiskeys that are making me freak out. And so that means that there is space for us to explore this process. It's like going back to my daughter in the Impressionist gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, if you create Impressionism, and I'm not in no way saying that the high altitude collection is Impressionism, like, we're talking about something way more important than the high altitude collection, but I'll just use this to illustrate my point. Like, if you create the impressionist style, you don't just keep repainting the same painting. Like, you make more of them. You explore the style. You use different themes. You use different settings. Like, and that's not to say that anything will ever be better than Peregrine or anything will ever be better than Helldiver. That's not the point. It's the same way in which, like, Monet's garden was beautiful, but if you prefer some other artist, some other painting, the haystacks, so like whatever it is, like that's fine. There's still excellency in those different paintings, and I think for us, there's real excellence to be explored within the high altitude collection process. This idea of we are making whiskey that has a amazing core foundation, but we are leaving space for it to grow into its finishing casks. And then we are blending those finishing casks, not all of them. We are blending the best of those finishing casks to an exact precision to finish the whiskey. It is expensive. It is a pain in the ass. It's a difficult process, and it makes uniquely delicious whiskey. And that's what the high altitude collection process is about. That's cool. So you better believe I'm going to encourage us to keep exploring different cask types, exploring different variants on this, which will lead to new birds and new first flights. Then later editions of those, right? Like,
nice.
You guys are going to want to see what I do. I keep saying you guys are going to want to see what Sammy does with Hoverhawk. Come out with it again, right? Like, Hoverhawk is a fucking banger. When we make the next one, it's going to be a banger, but it might not come out next, and it might. You know, no promises.
No, hang on, hold on. Like Hoverhawk, like you have a precedent of not holding to the exact finishing casks that you've used for previous releases of high altitudes. Would you like to tease any differences in maybe a Hoverhawk finishing cask that you may or may not have included in the next one?
Hoverhawk the Muscatel came out so good that I'm reticent to move away from it. I also feel like having done single barrels of, for example, like Peregrine, having done single barrels of Cognac and Armagnac and tasting them side by side of the same season, like, they're accomplishing the same thing in a slightly different way. It's the same thing as Oloroso and PX Sherry. Like, they create different whiskey. Don't get me wrong. When Glendronach 15-year revival went from Oloroso to Oloroso and PX, I was kind of pissed. So I'm not. It's not to say that it's. It's not to say that. I know, because you have a good palate. That's an origin story for me. Let's talk about that in 2 seconds. But basically, like, I think there are certain things where where I feel like we'll have a lot of flexibility within the particular line of the high altitude collection to maybe mix and match some of the cask usage. And there will be places where we're not sure that we really want to, or maybe like a certain cask type deserves its own whole line, and it'll always be that, right? You know what I mean? So do you remember, Cole, your gateway whiskey from being whiskey curious to being a whiskey lover?
It was Eagle Rare 17 vintage 2014.
Okay. All right, bro. Jesus. Yeah. Okay. That's a worthy whiskey to get you over the edge. It's like, do you remember the woman that made you, love women? It's like, when I went out with Marilyn Monroe for a night.
Exactly.
It's like, I decided that women were worth it. Like, Jesus.
No, I mean, I had a list in 2015 or so, and I was like, by the time I got to about 37, I tried Eagle Rare 17, and I was like, okay, I think I'm into whiskey now.
I think I
like women now.
I think I like women now.
Exactly.
I kissed Angelina Jolie, and you know what? I think I'd like to make out with more women.
I think I'm into that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right, so mine was a was more of like a high school prom date kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was Glendronach 15 year.
Oh yeah, Revival.
The original Revival.
Yeah. Wait, so tell me about okay. They changed Revival into different finishing cask, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the Parliament or like whatever the 18 year is, whatever. Okay.
No, it pissed me off.
Oh, when they brought it back. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So Glendronach 15, when it first came back, and it was the Glendronach 15 Revival.
Yeah.
That was my gateway whiskey. I'd had a lot of good whiskey in the past. A lot of like I had Macallan 12 and Oban 14, and I had Talisker 10, and I had Lagavulin 16, and I had tasted some good bourbon, some Maker's Mark and stuff. Good stuff for an amateur, for a total breaking into the category kind of thing. And then I started dabbling, I was like going to the liquor store, and I had a decent liquor store. I was living in San Francisco, and they had a decent selection of scotch, and I was asking them for stuff, and they put me on to 3 or 4 things that I really didn't like, and I almost gave up whiskey altogether, which is crazy. Because I spent like $80 on a bottle of scotch that I really didn't like.
That'll ruin you. Yeah.
Names will not be dropped.
What was the year? What was the year?
The age statement or the the age statement was it was a 15 year. And it was like $80 at the time. It was a single malt. Everybody who's been to everybody who's been to a Gordon's tasting in Waltham, Massachusetts, if any of them listen to this thing, they literally are yelling the name of this brand right now.
Yeah.
They know. I have a reputation. I have a reputation in Massachusetts for having a bone to pick with one particular Scottish distillery. But I hated it. I hated it so much that I couldn't drink it. And I stopped drinking whiskey for like 2 months because it was my only good bottle. You know what I mean? And I was just like,
you gotta like finish it, but you don't want to.
Yeah, it. I didn't have any money to like go. I was like, I have one $80 bottle. I'm not gonna go buy another bottle. And I was reading a single malt book. I was reading Michael Jackson's a guide to single malt. And I was just flipping through the pages, and it was Glendronach 15 year Revival was on there, and I read about it, and I read his description, and I was just like, I'm gonna go buy this. And I bought it, and it was the first holy shit moment I ever had in whiskey. And I fell in love with this whiskey, and like it was the backbone of my go-to in 2014, 2015 when I was working in a liquor store was people would come in and people wanted a Macallan 18 alternative because Macallan 18 went from being like $150 to being like $300 in a 2-year phase. You know what I mean? It was so fast. And I ended up, the first marketing email I ever wrote was about Glendronach 15 year. And I remember the email, the whole theme of the email was, there was this, it was like, have you ever been to Edinburgh?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Edinburgh's an incredible city, but Edinburgh, if you ever go to Edinburgh Castle is at the end of the Royal Mile or whatever it's called. That's cool. Basically it's a straight uphill, and at the top of the hill is the castle. And so the whole back, like 270 degrees of the castle is a cliff face.
Oh, cool.
And the email I wrote was describing Macallan 18 as the castle, and Glendronach 15 as there's this like beautiful grove at the base of the
so that's where you picked up good writing.
And I said there was I said there's a tavern down there. It's all make believe. I said there's a tavern down there, and that's where they sell Glendronach 15. And the people who know don't go to the castle; they go to the tavern.
I love
that. That was like the first marketing email I ever wrote about Glendronach 15. I was obsessed with this whiskey. And then it went away for a few years because of a bunch of aging. And then they brought they brought the second edition of the Revival back, but they stopped using Spanish Oloroso and started using PX casks. They used half PX casks,
about the
and it lost all of its like heavy nuttiness.
Because isn't the 18-year Oloroso and the 21 year is PX?
That was how it was originally. I haven't
Yeah.
stayed in touch with it enough to know at this point.
That's crazy.
But yeah. That's my like the
That's
first thing
funny.
I ever wrote. Somebody I know claims that they have that email saved somewhere in there because I don't have it anymore, and I just want to read my original writing and be
Yeah.
like, oh, what did I? But yeah, it was saucy writing. It was
That's
my
great.
first venture into really saucy writing.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I have one more serious whiskey question, and then I have one non-serious whiskey question that is critical that I ask. So I'm going to leave the critical one to last. But Cole, how are you doing on questions? Cole, do you have anything critical?
No, I'm cool with those two. I see them already.
All right.
So
okay. So critical. Batches 2, 4, and 6 have a particular tasting note that you tried to re-up, that you really honed in on, you felt like was core to the Found North brand. Do you feel like there have been or will be any more batches that resonate on the 2, 4, 6 train?
I think 11 did, to be honest.
Okay.
So what's the note? Which note was I talking about?
It's not a note for me. It's a thickness and palate viscosity.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I kind of think we don't make whiskey without thinking about that viscosity anymore. Like it's almost become table stakes for the brand. I think it's less of a I think it's less of a foundational piece of the high altitude collection because the high altitude collection is going for its own flavor its own flavor mouthfeel theme every single time. Batches conversely, I think even across batches 7, 8, 9, and 10, and I know 10 was the weeder, they all were going for a certain degree of that viscosity. I think 11, if I think about all the batches, all right, let's go through all the batches for a second, 1 through 11.
Let's do it.
I got my spreadsheet up, baby. We're ready.
1 and 3 were ryes, and we will make more rye. It will happen. Nice. We will make more rye releases. It will happen.
I loved 1 and 3.
Not in the context of 1 and 3. Probably not anytime soon. But because people don't like rye as much as they like our sort of, which is just tough. It's like I can't force us to make rye for 10% of our audience.
I get it. Right? Zach has to market something. I get it.
Zach has to make something work. No, but I think like 1 and 3 ryes, and then 2, 4, 6, and beyond corns, with 5 and 10 being the weeders, but still corn dominant. So if we look at 2, 4, and 6, 2 was like a mouthfeel viscosity thing. It was a new wood thing that we nailed. And 4, we ended up incorporating that really old Hungarian oak aged corn component that was magnificent. And then 6 was a blend of that, of the OG new wood, the 21 year that we used in 2, that we then used in 6, and the Hungarian that we used in 4, we used in 6. And it was supposed to be the perfect version of 2 and 4. And then the finish got kind of fucked up. And then we made 7, and 7 was supposed to be an iteration off of 6, where we got the finish right on 6 with 7. But 7 ended up being brighter. We ended up using an ex-bourbon aged component that was like 22 years old. And it was really lovely. But it made the whole narrative of that whiskey got a little bit brighter, and it fixed the finish, but it got a little bit away from that heaviness of 2, 4, and 6. 8, we went back to that heaviness, but we used the finishing cask of rye that was finished in that extraordinary Madeira cask.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Suddenly introduced like a really interesting fruit component,
Yeah.
and we iterated off of that with 9. And so 9 was more like 7. It was an iteration of 7 and 8.
Yeah.
It was like 7, and the viscosity was still there, but we were getting the fruit from a rye component aged in ruby port that was really, really exceptional. And then 10 was a throwback to 5, right? It was the wheater. And so when we made 11 was very much about like, all right, we did the red fruit thing from the Madeira and the ruby port in 8 and 9, but with 11 we want to really get back to the roots of 2, 4, and 6, and in particular 2. It was really looking back at 2 and going, what was so wonderful about 2, and how can we look at 2 through the eyes of the experience that we now have. And so one of the funny, interesting comparisons between 2 and 11 is 2 was a 3 whiskey blend. 11 was a 9 whiskey blend. And I've said this before, but every time you add another component, you add an order of magnitude more complexity to the blending process, because you're just changing so many things every time you tweak one component. If a component is bringing 5 things and it's affecting 5 other things in 3 other whiskeys, like when you add another one, it's 5 new things and influencing 4 other whiskeys with 5 other, like it's a multiplier. It's not linear. When you add a new whiskey, it's not a linear addition of complexity. It is a multiplier of complexity. Not from I don't mean complexity from like many flavor note things. I mean complexity from getting all of these things to work in unison.
Together.
If you think about it from an instrument standpoint, when you add a new whiskey, you're not adding one person playing one new instrument. Best case scenario, you're adding 3 people playing 3 different instruments. But when you really get into it, you're adding a whole new orchestra to the current orchestra every time you add a new whiskey, right? It's not, and so getting all of those people to play in concert together, getting 3 people to play well together is hard enough. Getting 300 people to play well together, that's what it's like going from 3 whiskeys to 9 whiskeys in a blend. But we were so much better. We were so much better at it by the time we were making batch 11 that we were able to go, well, let's make 3 parts to this whiskey. So we had the Newwood part, the corn Newwood part, which was 4 whiskeys. We had the corn non-Newwood part, which was 3 whiskeys, and we had the rye part, which was 2 whiskeys. And we actually shaped those entire like subcomponents of the whiskey. Instead of being like, hey, this is a 9 whiskey blend, it was a 3-part blend that was assembled by using 4 whiskeys for one part, 3 whiskeys for one part, and 2 whiskeys for another part, right? So you're talking about a level of advancement in our ability that allowed us to look at batch 2 and go, what was amazing about batch 2, and how do we take the skills that we've developed over the last 5 years and make a substantially more interesting whiskey than batch 2, but that is of the ilk of batch 2. And so I think that through line of focusing on this combination of deep, rich viscosity plus a combination of corn, Newwood, spice, rye, and whatever mix we're throwing in there from rye, whether it's a Speyside aged rye or a weeded bourbon aged rye or a Madeira aged rye, or like that is the crux of what Found North is. And each batch is just a new expression of our understanding of this theory.
Yeah. Now, okay, I have a question for you. This is the hardest question. This is I wait till Nick has had as much to drink as he could possibly have question. And honestly, this might be a Zach question, because I was talking to Chris not too long ago, and Chris said, you know what we should do sometime is we should have Chris, Zach, and Nick on an episode later this year, because maybe there might be some awesome release later this year that might be like
just interview Zach. Fuck Chris and I.
Yeah.
Here's my Zach question, and you can do it justice as much as you want to do it justice
I'll do my
right
best.
now, but I'll ask Zach this later. And the question is, do you feel like Found North as a brand has done itself a disservice by having a premium Peregrine release that is a high altitude release that is obviously, if you look at the stats, it obviously has less young whiskey components than everything else you do. It only has supremely old whiskey components, but it is priced at a higher tier. It is 200, it is $225.
200 plus. Yep.
Do you feel like this does the brand a disservice by tricking people into believing that you've raised your prices over time, whereas you're simply charging people an appropriate price for the ages of whiskey that go into the blend?
Yeah, I actually laughed when I saw people. I remember when we released Peregrine 2024. It's a 21 year. The whiskey's in there 21, 23, 24, 25 years old. It's the most expensive stuff we use to make the most expensive whiskey we make. And I remember I was expecting people to be like, well, Peregrine is 200. This new Peregrine is 225, and the last one was 200, and it's only a year. I was expecting some blowback on that, right? I was like, oh yeah, like 200 to 225, like it makes sense. Like I'd imagine people getting upset, but actually people were comparing it to like Hoverhawk. You know, like, well, the last high altitude collection was 165, and this one's 225, and I was like, guys, the last one was 15-year-old whiskey. Like,
if you look at the
what
stats,
the hell are we talking about? Like, I don't. And so it's a great question because we expect a certain reaction from customers, and we don't always get that reaction. Now, that being said, the loudest voice isn't always the majority. You know what I mean? So, like, look, like the reality of the Found North customer base, it's probably like the thing I love the most about Found North is the people I work with, but probably the second thing that I love the most about Found North is the people we sell to. We sell to the most sophisticated customer base in whiskey.
They make spreadsheets? Are you
exactly.
No, like, jokes aside, think about it this way. Found North has never been published in Whiskey Advocate, Whiskey
the
Watch,
Ascot Awards.
The
Ascot Awards.
We were on Bourbon Pursuit, and it was a great interview. But like,
oh, that's right,
yeah, like we have been as non-mainstream a premium brand
you guys are the
as
hipster,
you possibly can be, right? Okay, so that's one. Two, we make premium Canadian whiskey, which most people have never even fucking heard of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you don't drink Crown Royal, how much Canadian whiskey do you drink?
Yeah.
Like, we are selling to people who are digging under rocks to find cool whiskey.
Yeah.
Right? They're not just like walking into the store and being like, "Hey, what's something interesting I should buy?" Oh, what? Oh, I've never heard of. I don't want to name somebody because I'll offend someone. But like, my point is like the customer base that we have is generally the most sophisticated whiskey customer in the world. And they spend time and energy thinking about, emailing us and asking us about our whiskey, our process. Like, you couldn't ask for a better we're blessed with the best audience in the world. So, like, you know, that being said, I remember she's probably listening to this podcast right now, but I remember we made Found North batch 2, And it was at a time, it was like 1,300 bottles. It was such a small release. Like it's like a silly small release.
1302, baby.
bottles,
Nice.
And somebody heard about it. Some guy heard about it and ended up writing a review about it, who's an average customer who's just getting into whiskey. And he was like, it's 130 proof. And he wasn't used to drinking cask strength whiskey. And he ended up writing this thing about being like, I'm getting into whiskey. I've never had Found North and I hate it. And it was so hot and blah, blah, blah. And we gave this guy full refund. Like we just emailed him and we were like, you bought it. Like, here's a full refund. We were like, we recommend adding ice or water if you're not used to 130 proof. And he was just he was just like super nice about it. But we went through the process of looking what this guy did for a living. And like, what we ended up, not to disparage anybody for anything in their life, but we ended up finding, we were like, this guy spent like a quarter of his weekly wage on a bottle of Found North and hated it. And that sucks. And he probably heard from somebody that like drinks cask strength whiskey all the time, they should drink Found North, and he hated it. But we have almost none of those customers. So we get some asshole every once in a while who like doesn't get Found North or doesn't get our pricing or doesn't look into it or doesn't read about it or doesn't know what they're buying. Like, frankly, most of those people don't enter a fucking lottery to win a bottle of whiskey. But when they do and they happen to dislike it and they happen to complain about some aspect of it without thinking it through, I don't worry about it, because the people that buy Found North and enjoy Found North, who if I open my Discord app right now on my computer, there are 30 people talking about Found North right now who are having incredibly thoughtful conversations about it, who are the dream customer for anybody who cares about the whiskey that they make. And
they're all on the Chill Filtered Discord server.
And they all are on the Chill Filtered Discord. No, but I'm sure they're like, I checked, dude, I checked before we went in here, right?
Heck
like, somebody asked when we were getting the Found North Penguin. That's a reasonable question.
But my point is, buddy. Like, right there.
That's great.
Like, no, but my point is like, we've done a disservice for the average consumer. But fortunately for Found North, we don't sell to the average consumer. We sell to the people, not as like a brag, but just as like a people who are willing to take a chance on a premium Canadian whiskey that doesn't market in any of the main places, who's spending 4 hours on Reddit a day talking about whiskey, knows enough about how companies price their whiskey to know that if we sell something that's 21 to 25 years old and we charge you $225 for it, that's not that fucking much. Like, if it were bourbon, it would be an $800 product.
Yeah. Right.
And it wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fair. All right. Very last question. I have a tendency to save the worst questions for last, and this is the one. We're 3 hours in. Everyone's asleep. Shh, everyone's asleep. We're gonna whisper the answer to this one. All right. Why is the Google Maps pin for Found North whiskey 200 miles off the coast of Oregon?
Oh, that's funny.
I have no idea. I didn't even know that. That's fucking hilarious.
I was hoping you knew. So the Google Maps pin for Found North whiskey is 200 miles off the coast of Oregon in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So I want to know when the Chill Filtered meetup on the Found North Island, 200 miles off the coast of Oregon, is going to be.
Is happening? No, the really funny thing, I mean, I think the really funny thing is like we're a COVID baby, right? Like this brand was built the places where our team lives. Ready for this? Like, here's where our team lives, and everybody works from their home because we don't have offices, right? Okay. Our team lives in, 4 of us live in the Boston area. One of us lives in Spain. One of us lives in Connecticut. One of us lives in Hudson, New York. And then our co-packing facility is in Rochester, New York, and the distilleries where we source from are from all over Canada. So where are we located? Like, we aren't located anywhere. And it's hilarious. We got an email yesterday from somebody who was like, hey, like, I won my or not yesterday, like 4 hours ago. I won my bottle. Like I just won my bottle. And I'm not going to be at home. Could I just pick it up from your location in Boston? And we're like, no, like we don't have a location. That's not where we're shipping
Yeah.
from. Our retail partners
Right.
in New York City. Like, what,
Yeah.
like we don't have the location.
Dang. So now follow-up question: whose phone number ends in 7431?
Zach's.
His phone number is on Google Maps.
His phone number's on Google Maps.
Good.
All six of our listeners listening 3 hours in will find out that Zach's phone number is on Google Maps right here.
Yeah.
I literally I might pee myself. Can we pause for a second? Like
Yes,
I'm gonna
please.
die.
Dude,
I'm muting myself.
Go
Yeah,
pee.
go.
That's okay. Don't mute yourself. I've peed twice. If you're watching on YouTube,
So that's what you got up to do?
You've seen me get up out of my chair and leave for a minute because I've been peeing. I love that because I brought up Zach's phone number. He had to hop up and leave.
Man, that's crazy. And then if you look at the street view, it like shows up in like Africa.
Dude, street view? I didn't even think about pulling that up.
Zoom into the map point when you look up Foul North Whiskey. There's a street view option, and then it like shows you like somewhere in Africa that has like a really iridescent.
Oh my gosh! I'm looking at it right now. Wait,
you see the Desert X thing?
Yeah, but I'm panning around, and in the one particular, it looks like kind of southeast-ish. There's a city. I'm seeing a city in the distance, southeast-ish.
Oh, really? This is what happens when you go 3 hours in.
Oh, dude, there's a whole friggin' wind farm over here in the distance too.
Yeah.
If you zoom in.
Did you see that iridescent thing I'm talking about?
Iridescent thing. And hold on.
Keep turning around.
Oh yeah, dude. That's where they blend all their stuff. That's
how they do it.
That's where the magic sauce is, dude.
Yeah, iridescence is magic, man.
For real though, it's a circular building with like rainbow walls.
It's really weird. Look it up, everyone. You won't be sorry.
So I muted myself this time without taking my headphones off, and then I just listened to you assholes talking about the African place. That what the hell? No,
we're spreading all the secrets, man.
Yeah,
it's actually funny because we've talked a lot about like, one of the disadvantages that Found North has as a brand is we don't have a location, right? Like having a location is an enormous advantage for a brand because people visit and they get this sense of place, right? Like, and sense of place is a
sentimental
sense of right. It's sentimental, and so we've talked about like, well, would it be worth it to just create a home base somewhere? Just like create a bar or a
like a
warehouse
question, yeah.
And we never do it. We've never done it. We never do it. And the simple reason is we'd rather spend the money on the whiskey. Rather spend the money on there's so much money that you can spend on making the whiskey better. It's actually crazy. The amount of money that you can invest in the quality of your whiskey. And we just constantly are trying to do that. And it's one of those things where it's like, do you really want to spend like $3 million on a facility, or do you want to buy $3 million worth of whiskey in casks that'll just give us astronomical levels of creativity and creative flexibility and access, right? So I think one of the things that is one of the challenges that it's hard to appreciate is like whiskey making is a cash flow business, right? Like not to get into the financial nuts and bolts, but the cash flow aspect of it is really complicated, and it's really important in the sense that like even when we make a whiskey, when we sell that whiskey, we sell it to a wholesaler who sells it to a retailer who sells it to a customer. And there are different terms based on whatever market you're in. It could be 6 to 8 months before we see any of that money come back in, right? And then on top of that, we already invested all of the money to make that whiskey. Bought all the glass, bought all the liquid, did all the labor, paid for all the labor, right? Like, there. And so if you think about, like, I don't know, if you think about baking cakes, if you bake cakes for a living and you bake a cake, like, you buy the flour on Monday and you bake the cake on Wednesday and you sell the cake on Thursday, the cash comes back in. When we bake our cakes, it's 18 months at least before we see the money come back in, right? It's crazy how
it's a long bake.
It's a long ass time to see the money come back in.
Yeah.
And so cash flow is actually a really important aspect of good whiskey. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, we want to buy this rye and then we want to age it for 3 years. Do you know how fucking expensive that is? It's not just it's not just the cost of the whiskey. It's 3 years before you see any of that capital start coming back in. And it's a really interesting aspect of the process. And we've been very good about basically managing our inventory in a way where we've had a lot of freedom to, based on how we've reinvested our money, we've had a lot of freedom to buy stuff, buy casks, recast stuff, and know we're going to sit on it for years.
Yeah.
And to get that balance of, like, okay, we're going to buy what we need for most of this blend, but then we're going to also use these different components that we've done some special aging regimen on so that it fits together. And then we're going to further mature it for another year. And then we're going to buy those casks, and then we're going to, it's like, it's the capital intensive aspect of this is pretty astronomical. And the again, just to toot Zach's horn, the financials behind it that make that possible really dictate to the quality of the whiskey. It's not just like the feasibility or it's not just the feasibility of Found North. It's not even just the fact that this whiskey done less well than how my brother does it should cost a lot more than it does, right? Like, these whiskeys should be $300 a bottle, not because I'm necessarily saying that's what they're worth, but that's what they should cost.
Yeah.
Like, forget about, just hold the phone on what these are worth. I see secondary market pricing, so I know what people are willing to pay for them. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, like, what it should cost to make Found North is a lot higher than it is. And that's because of that difference is a huge part of what Zach does, but also this whiskey shouldn't be as good as it is. We shouldn't be using as good ingredients, as good casks as we are, without somebody making it all work behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's dope. Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you for no. And here's the thing: is, like, we've drank it a bit, we've enjoyed it. We say, honestly, like, it just keeps getting better. So keep it up. Dude. There's got to be some
juiciest, jammiest juice, even more juicy jammy. If you love the juicy jammy of Helldiver 15, you're gonna even more love the juicy jammy of 17.
Oh, it's a step up. Absolutely. That's the cool thing. Is, like, I don't know, like, the question is it possible to keep outdoing yourself? And so far, Found North's got it.
Jeez, I have so many thoughts on that question.
Next time. Good thing we'll have you on again. So that's the thing. We need to have you on more because it's been a while and we're 3 hours in. So if we just have you on again soon, it might not be 3 hours next time.
I just think it's really funny that you said drank it. Because I always used to think to myself that the term "I edited it," it's just one of the funniest. Like, I did edits to it. Like, I edited it. It's just one of the funniest ways. I edited it.
Yeah,
I drank it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go up to my wife and be like, "How'd it go?" I'm like, "Whoa, we had the whiskey and we drank it." She's like, good God, go to bed.
I saw you grab the GTS from 2014. What was up with
She's
that?
like, I hope you weren't drinking 138.1 proof whiskey on the live stream.
It reminds me of maybe, I don't know if it was the last time we had you on, but the time where we drank all first 8 batches, basically.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
We were sauced. That was fun.
That was great.
But it was awesome.
Easily best episode ever. Easily.
Yeah, it was great. Well, Nick, any other things you want to tell our listeners before we close it out?
Yes, God. Yeah. Okay. If you are on and you've been on for the last 3 hours and 20 minutes or whatever the hell it's been, and you are not signed up for the Found North mailing list,
get on it.
I literally will come and find you.
He's going to find you.
And I will stick a pen in that weird space between.
Oh, right. Yeah. He'll slice your Achilles with a pen.
No, not the Achilles. I'm going to put it through that spot so it's wedged in behind the Achilles tendon. No. All kidding aside, very much all kidding aside. The Found North mailing list is the best way to get Found North products. We will be doing at some point, relatively soon, a mailing list only release.
Nice.
And it is one of my favorite whiskeys we've ever made. It is a effing, because I have a daughter now. It's an effing banger. And if you're not on the mailing list, you're an idiot. If you listen to this and you're like, I hate those guys from Found North, don't get on our mailing list. But if you listen to this,
they're not listening this long.
If you're listening to this and you're like, I'm still here. It's been 3.5 hours. And I'm still listening to this guy talk, and I'm interested in what he makes. Please, for the love of God, get on our mailing list. Not because we're gonna send you solicitous emails that are
don't often.
Yes, we send virtually no emails. It's just
pretty much only when there's a release,
and it's the best way to get our whiskey. It's. I mean, come on! It's the most entertaining writing about whiskey every year, right? Like
no doubt.
Do you know how many people have texted me a Vermilion?
Yeah, exactly.
AI models train their descriptive text based off
herbaceous
AI models. I mean, good Lord. I had an absolute blast tonight. I really appreciate you guys letting me wax rhapsodic about Found North all night and talk about my family and my brother and Helldiver and all these things. I'm going to make one more shameless plug for people to join the mailing list, which they don't need to do, and now probably won't because I've embarrassed myself so much. I've now embarrassed myself. I literally dumped a glass of whiskey in my lap 1 minute in, and then my headphones died 3.5 hours in. So that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. No, you guys are the best. Thanks for having me. Now I'll stop talking so you guys can sign off for your audience and say all the things you say. And then we'll email each other about what happened, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be great. Everyone. But Nick, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for just what you do. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. But we hope you join us again next release, if not the next release after that. But most of all, everyone, including Nick Taylor himself, we hope that our love of whiskey lifted your spirits. All right, here we go. Wow. All right, we'll have to take